The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Round 8 of the Summer Classic here in St. Louis. The Challengers section could have been decided a day early, as Kamil Dragun's 2 rooks on the 7th was too much for his opponent. However, Andrei Stukopin retained an outlying chance of winning first place late in the round. The Masters section is a 3-horse race, after Vasif Durabaili was saddled with his first loss, allowing Var Kobian to tie him at the top after Var's draw with Sam Sevian. The 17-year-old is a half-point back from the lead. With playoffs a possibility, there must be a winner. Coverage of the final round starts now. 20 international chess professionals compete in St. Louis as USChessChamps.com presents the first ever Summer Chess Classic.
Hello everyone, welcome to the St. Louis Chess Club studio and the 2018 Summer Chess Classic. I am Women Grandmaster Katerina Nemcova and I'm joined by International Master Eric Rosen. Today we have round 9, the very last round of these 2 very strong events. So before we look at how those strong Grandmasters are playing their games, let's review yesterday's results.
Yeah, we had 2 decisive games in Group A yesterday with Yaro Zerabuk defeating the tournament leader Vasif Durabaili and Jeffrey Zhang defeating Alexander Ingic. So let's take a look at the standings and see who's in contention for first place. We have 2 players tied for first going into this round, Vasif Durabaili and Varuzhan Akobian with a very impressive 5.5 out of 8 points. And we have Sam Sevian right behind with 5 out of 8 points.
And let's take a look at the results for Group B. We had 2 undecisive results, otherwise Dinara Sadova-Kasova won a very nice game against Sergei Matsenko, Kamil Dragun, the leader of the tournament, won against Alejandro Ramirez, Tatev Abrahamian lost to Andrei Stukopin, and then we had a draw between George Friedel and JJ Alimarandi and Robert Agasarian and Vladimir Belos. This brings us to standings. And we see that Kamil Dragun has 6 points. He was followed by Andrei Stukopin, who had a chance to catch him. But we have to know that Kamil Dragun is the clear winner now. Congratulations, because Andrei Stukopin drew his game. What a nice fireworks here.
Yeah, very good tournament for Camille. Played some very high quality chess and deservedly wins the $4,000 first place prize. So huge congratulations, Camille. But he's still playing his game, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see if he can finish strong.
So let's move on to the tournament format. We have two 10 round-robin games. Time control is 90 minutes for 40 moves, plus 30 minutes for the remainder of their game, with a 30-second increment from move 1, and we have to know that players are not allowed to agree on a draw before move 30.
And there is a possibility today of an Armageddon playoff in Group A. We should take a look at the playoff format. If that's the case, it would be a 2-game rapid match with both sides having 10 minutes plus a 2-second delay. And if that match is tied, it goes down to an Armageddon game where white has time odds with 5 minutes plus 2 seconds. Black would have 4 minutes plus 2-second increment with draw odds. So it's a very interesting scenario, especially if it comes down to Armageddon. Katerina, which side would you prefer in Armageddon? White with extra time or black with draw odds?
I have experience with playing Armageddon games in some tournaments, and I always pick black. I usually catch up back with the time, and I really enjoy having the draw odds because I don't like to have perpetual and not being able to win according to those rules. So I pick blacks to make sure that anytime there is a draw, I am the one who is qualifying.
I understand that, but in Armageddon, I much prefer having the white side. I like the extra time, especially in a blitz game. There aren't as many draws as in classical chess, and I like being able to try and find the opponent.
And we do want to know that Armageddon game, if there was one to happen, it's going to happen today. The playoff will start most likely at 5 p.m. Central Time.
So let's take a look at the matchups underway. We'll start with the pairings for Group A. We have 4 games still going between Jeffrey Zhang and Benjamin Bach, Rinat Jumabayev against Alexander Ingic. Var Akobian drawing Daniel Fridman in a very quick game. I'm sure Var is hoping to get a playoff spot. And then we have the very crucial game between Vasif Jarabaly, tied for first place against Sam Sevian in third place. If Vasif wins that game, he'll be the clear Group A champion. But if it's a draw or Sam wins, then it will force a playoff. And then last but not least, we have Peter Prohaska against Yaro Jerabuk.
And we have 2 key matchups for this group. The first one is Var Akobian against Daniel Fridman. We have this very strong American Grandmaster against German Grandmaster. The game has already finished. Players agreed on a draw, and Var is the one who is waiting now to see whether he is going to play a playoff or whether he's the winner.
And the other key matchup for today is a fight between Vasif Jarabaly and Sam Sevian. There's a lot of money riding on this game. Let's take a glance and see what's going on in the position. We were taking a look at earlier, and I think we can tell just based on Vasif's expression, he can't be too happy, kind of slumped over there, pondering his next move. Sam is away from the board. If we take a look at the position, we can see this monstrous knight on the d4 square. And I think black has everything to play for in this position.
And we also see how black is advancing on the king side. I mean, g5, h5. Black definitely wants to break through, maybe with g4, creating a weakness on e4. The pawn is going to be for grabs whether after we play g4. So I feel black is the one who is very pleasant and very happy with this position. And white has to do, Vasif has to try to defend this, to make a draw in order to get to playoffs.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to keep an eye on this game. I'm expecting a very long fight, given that, okay, black is clearly better, but it's not immediately winning, and I'm sure players are going to fight very hard, especially because it is the last round.
So let's see the pairings for Group B. We have some exciting matches there. We have Vladimir Belos playing Dinara Sadoakasova. We have 2 quick draws already where JJ Alimarandi drew Robert Agasarian and Andrei Stukopin drew Josh Frieder. The last 2 games that are being played, Alejandro Ramirez against Tatev Abrahamian and Sergei Matsenko against Kamil Dragun.
And we had 2 key matchups. The matchup between Andrei Stukopin and Josh Friedel ended in a very quick draw. Andrei had to win that game to have any hopes for a playoff with Kamil Dragun. But I do want to show the game and what happened. It was a 12-move draw. They played into, I think, what is a pretty well-known line in the Queen's Gambit accepted variation, where after bishop g4, Andrei actually went for a forced draw after knight g5, sacrificing his queen, and then simply forcing the perpetual check. So perhaps Andrei was satisfied with just a quick game. Still good standing in the tournament, but not enough for first place.
I mean, we have to know that 9 rounds, it's a very long tournament, players get tired. So sometimes you are just happy with having draw in the last round to finish it off and then move on to your next plans.
Absolutely. And the other key matchup of today is the already tournament winner, Kamil Dragan against Sergey Matsenko. They're still fighting hard against each other. And we should note that they were roommates during this event, staying in the same house. So I think they probably have gotten to know each other pretty well, but they're not agreeing to a quick draw in the final round. Perhaps Sergey is playing for more. We can see him very focused there. Kamil is away from the board. Let's take a look at the current position. There have been some updates since when we looked before the broadcast. This pawn on d5 is now a passed pawn. Probably a pretty strong point for white in position, not to mention the double fianchetto gives white perhaps some chances in this position.
Yes, we talked about it before, and we were very happy with Eric to see all the white pieces being developed. I mean, the rooks are amazing, on files, bishops developed and attacking. Also, I would like to know the pawns on the queen side. I mean, the a4, b5, they are creating more space for white, and I think even just a more pleasant position for white to play.
Yeah, and I'm a bit suspicious of black's last move, this pawn advance, pawn e4. It just seems weakening. I'm wondering if white can maybe start looking for ways to attack the pawn, perhaps rook to c4, queen e3. Just seems like white can build up a lot of pressure, not to mention that the c5 pawn is also a target, maybe potential ideas of bishop a3. So it seems like white has a lot to play for in this position.
So let's move on and review prizes. What are the players fighting for?
Yeah, we have a very generous $22,000 prize fund for Group A with $6,000 for first place. And right now, it's only Sam Sevian, Varuzhan Akobian, and Vasif Darabeli who can fight for the first place prize.
And the prize fund for Group B is also very nice. It's a total of $14,000. The winner takes $4,000 home. It's clear it's Kamil Dragan who's winning this prize. Very good tournament for him. He must be very pleased.
Absolutely, and I mean, with the last round going, there's a lot of players fighting for various prizes, even if it's not for first place. There's still lots of money to fight for. So we should take a look at some of the games and see what's transpiring. A game that catches my eye is a fight between Peter Prohaska and Yaro Jerebuk. Started as a relatively sharp King's Indian, and now they have a position with kind of pieces scattered all over the place. But I do have to prefer white, given that white is currently up a pawn in the position. This d6 pawn is incredibly weak. And I mean, it seems like Peter is the one playing for a win.
I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I like how white's pieces are more active. I mean, we see the bishop on f8. That's a very sad piece, just staring at its own pawn. So probably white's going to retreat with the bishop from b7. I mean, we probably suggest something like bishop f3, just going back.
Sure, in a line like bishop to f3, black could win the pawn on b2, but then white wins the pawn on d6. I think it's just a clean pawn advantage for white. So Yaro might not be ending the tournament so well in this game.
It is a little surprising to see that usually when one is winning on the board, he's also winning with the time or having a better time advantage. But we see that Peter Prohaska has only 15 minutes, whereas Yaro Jerebuk has 31 minutes. So I wonder what makes Peter think too much here.
That's right. I think there were some complications earlier, so maybe he just took a lot of time in the late opening, early middle game to navigate through the chaos in the position. But let's move on to another game. There's many other games that are catching my eye. Maybe we can glance at the game between Jeffrey Zhang and Benjamin Bach, where this has been a running theme throughout the tournament. Rook endgames where one side is up a pawn. I think every game that we've seen, white has had the extra pawn, trying to grind out the position. Do you think there's any hope for Jeffrey to win this position?
And I just believe that Benjamin was the one who had yesterday pawn up. So yesterday was pawn up. He wasn't able to transfer that advantage. Today he is pawn down and he has to hold. But this shouldn't be a difficult position to hold a draw.
Yeah, this is a pretty routine draw, especially with the time situation. I mean, it's only a couple hours into the round, and both players are well past move 40. They're actually on move 55, so players playing very quickly. And after rook d4, the strategy for black in this position is do not trade rooks. Just keep your rook on an active square. And if white wants to make any progress, you probably have to trade off a pair of pawns, and then it's just going to be a theoretically drawn endgame.
Yeah, so black will just retreat the rook and then wait. I mean, black is very happy to have king on g6. Sometimes if the king is cut off and it's somewhere far away from the pawn, then these positions can be lost. But king is safe, defending the pawn on f6. This should not be a difficult situation to hold to a draw.
Absolutely. So let's move on to another game. Maybe we can take a look at the fight between Rinat Jumabayev and Alexander Ingic. They have what seems to be a very imbalanced position. I'm trying to count material here. It looks like white is down the exchange, but has 2 pawns for it. Any thoughts?
So every time we see unbalanced positions, I like to see how players are fighting, and you see that even who has the advantage is sometimes not better in a way. Like here, black has exchange up, but most likely the bishops are very strong. I mean, we saw a similar theme in the game JJ Alimarandi against Tatev Abrahamian, where these bishops, they are just such a huge force that it's hard to stop.
Now, it reminds me of the Danish gambit, where you get these two bishops on b2 and c4 early in the opening, kind of staring down against the black king side. But white's last move does not seem too impressive. This retreating move, bishop to e2, perhaps unleashing the battery on the c file, maybe considering the repositioning of the bishop to f3, perhaps to guard the king side, but I do prefer white in this position.
And also another idea is knight c4 and knight e5, just to free up that square and bring the knight to a better square.
Yeah, it's all about optimizing the pieces. And another idea I want to point out, just being inspired from the games yesterday, white has a passed e-pawn. And if white can get the pawn to e5, it not only leads to a very aesthetic looking pawn chain, but it would aim to control the square on d6, so maybe white could someday get a knight to c4 and d6, and we see a very powerful outpost in this position. But that takes a long time to do, and we're going to have to see if Alexander can maybe stir up some initiative before white gets ideal setup.
I do like the idea of e4, e5, but we do have to be careful about making the knight on c6 too active, because anytime we play e4, we free up the d4 square for the knight, and that's something that we may not want to do. But let's move on somewhere else, because we do have a result between Jeffrey Zhong and Benjamin Bog. The rook endgame did end up in a draw.
The rook ending has turned into a king endgame with nothing else on the board. Let's see how that happened. I'm sure Jeffrey completely understands this is a draw. There's really nothing to play for. So rooks actually got traded. I was saying there shouldn't be a trade of rooks, but I guess if black can simplify, which he did with the move f5, then it's just an easy draw capture. And Jeffrey did not even play out the king pawn ending. He could play king e3 and play on until stalemate. He just played f4. King take f4. Solid way to finish the tournament for both players.
Nice draw. So let's move on and to see maybe the game Rinat Jumabayev against Alexander Ingic.
Yeah, we were just looking at this game. Bishop e2 was played. Alexander is thinking here, so maybe we can take a look at another game. Let's go back to the fight between Vasif Darbeli and Sam Sevian, because this is probably the most critical game out of both groups, just for the playoff possibility. We were saying earlier, if Vasif wins, he's guaranteed first place, but I think he's on the worst side. Sam is playing for a win to force a playoff against Varusian Kobian. Queen h6 just played, and it looks like black is having some nice expansion on the king side. Maybe someday going for this g4 push, but it's a question of whether or not white's forces are solid enough to hold the position together.
I like the move Queen h6 because it's a little waiting move. Black is preparing maybe g4, maybe moving just the pieces around, but now it's white's turn to make a move, and white is a little tied up. White does not have too many chances to play for a move. Like, let's say I play g3 or h3, every move weakens something and provides a target for black. So white needs to decide how to make the best move here that does not worsen his position.
I would be very uncomfortable as white here. I mean, a big component in this position is the fact the knight is just so powerful on d4, and this bishop is just staring into empty space on c4. It's really having no purpose in the position. That's usually not a good sign when it's a battle between two minor pieces. So it is a question, what is Vasif actually doing here? Does he have to play a waiting move? The only maybe somewhat active idea that I see is some potential minority attack on the queen side, something like a4 and then b5, but I don't know if this is really achieving much for white.
I wonder what black is going to do if I make as white a waiting move, let's say bishop d3. Just to throw the ball on black and say, okay, it's your turn. Are you going to play g4 or what is your plan?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, as black, I would like to maybe improve slightly more. I feel a bit better with this rook on f6. And maybe I can show a line where I wanted to demonstrate a line where there's some danger with X-ray vision between the queens. Let's give black, I don't want to give black too many moves in a row. Let's give black maybe 5 moves in a row, just to demonstrate an idea. Let's say rook f6, the bishop will move back and forth. Let's bring the king to e7, bishop keeps moving back and forth. And then when the time is right, I would like to go for this breakthrough g4. Idea would be if pawn takes g4, rook take f2. Now I'm realizing this doesn't quite work because the bishop is defending f1. So maybe this would just be a trade, and black is not even achieving so much with so many moves in a row.
But still, white has to be very careful about the X-ray, about the minority attack for black on the king side. It's an uncomfortable position. I see that Vasif just made the move a4 to try the attack on the queen side.
Yeah, let's get to the current position. Pawn a4 played. Yeah, putting the ball in black's court, and now it's a question how to make progress. I'm sure Sam will be maybe a bit more accurate in the way he proceeds in the position compared to me, but it's just a question how to break through. Do you go for g4 at some point? Do you go for the h-pawn push? And we'll have to wait and see.
So before we wait how they're going to proceed, let's look at the game Vladimir Beros against Dinara Sadoakasova. I thought it was a very interesting idea that Vladimir decided to make in the opening, and suddenly again we have an unbalanced position, promising game.
Yeah, let's go back to the opening because we had like a very standard hedgehog setup after knight take d4. I mean, you see this these types of positions among high-level players so often, but Vladimir chose the very unexpected and very ambitious knight d to b5, hitting the queen on c7, also hitting the pawn on d6, and it led to a somewhat interesting material imbalance after pawn take knight, knight take b5, queen b8, knight take d6. White won a few pawns and is also winning the exchange. We should point out that black can't really save the rook from c8. If the rook moves to c7, white would have the straightforward tactic, knight take b7, and then whatever takes back, white would then have e5, winning a significant amount of material.
The bishop on b6, b7 is really important, and whenever white gets it, then white bishop on g2 just becomes such a strong force with threats e5. I really like this idea of knight b5 and sacrificing a knight.
Yeah, so what happened in the game, Dinara chose just to give up the rook on c8, played the move e5, perhaps trying to get the bishop on g2 maybe a bit more passive, given that the pawn is now fixed on e4. But after knight takes c8, rook takes c8, we see an interesting material imbalance, black having 2 knights and white having a rook and 2 pawns. What side would you prefer in this position?
I really like the white pawns. I mean, the center is great. The e4, c4 are really strong pawns. We have a future with maybe b4, c5, having a pass pawn. I always favor, I mean, not always, but usually I favor the pieces that have the pair of bishop with the pawns going forward, because the bishops are great supporters. I would choose white here.
Yeah, it's a balance. I don't know if I'm a heavy favorite for white, because I do like having more minor pieces, especially if you have like 2 minor pieces for a rook. One of my very first chess coaches taught me that 2 minor pieces is about equivalent to rook and 2 pawns, just because 2 minor pieces can coordinate better together. So I think it's going to be a close fight. I think there probably should be chances for both sides. Let's zoom forward and see what the current position is. The bishop traded off on e6, and after rook d3, bishop f8, rook e d1, brings us to the current position where it seems like white is very comfortable, dominating the only open file on the board. It just seems like better harmony for white in this position.
Yeah, I'm sad to see that the light square bishop disappeared, but on the good side is that we do control the d file, and black pieces cannot just regroup very easily. So we see knight on f6, which is just not very strong. I mean, the knight is not, it's attacking e4, but that's defended by pawn on f3. It cannot go anywhere else. So maybe white is the one who is just waiting how to proceed on the queen side.
Yeah, it just seems uncomfortable for black, and white will start having looming threats of something like rook d8, maybe reposition the bishop and go for ideas like bishop h6. So it doesn't seem that pleasant for Dinara. We can see she's very focused on the board with Vladimir leaning back and taking a walk away from the board. And Dinara's time is ticking down, less than 15 minutes to make about 14 moves, so not much time to play the next several moves.
So what if we move on to the game Alejandro Ramirez and Tatev Abrahamian? We did not look there yet, and I thought it's an also interesting position. We have a pair of bishop for white, and what is the material? Otherwise the material is equal, nobody has any advantage.
Yeah, I mean, both sides have somewhat damaged pawn structure. We can see these double pawns for Alejandro on the king side, but an isolated pawn for Tatev on d5 seems somewhat imbalanced, but I would have to prefer white in this position, having two bishops in a very open position. And I think in this game we'll see how two bishops can overpower two knights.
And I really like the move that happened, bishop b1. I remember watching strong grandmasters playing games with these two bishops, and Kramnik was saying that bishops are really strong even if they are on the first rank, because they have the potential of attacking any squares and really be very powerful. So I like how the bishops now on b1 and b2 maybe are not developed perfectly, but they control so many squares and they can move to more active spaces at any time.
Absolutely, and I think Alejandro just wants to play the simple a3 next, kick the knight away, force it back to c6 where it's far less productive, and then maybe reactivate the light squared bishop, maybe a move like soon the bishop d3, and go after black's structure on the queen side, not to mention that black is always going to have to worry about the isolated d5 pawn. So I think white has a lot to play for.
That's true, because black cannot just move away with the knights to try to regroup them, because the pawn would always be a weakness. I mean, how do you think black can proceed here when we know the easy plan for white is just to a3, push the knight away, and then just to improve the bishops?
That's a great question. It's hard to find a plan here for black. Like, both knights just seem very restricted. This knight on f6. We saw this idea in another game where it's just restricted by the f3 pawn. It can't really find a better square. So I think it's a question if Tatev can somehow optimize the knights, but it's not easy given that the d5 pawn always needs to be defended. And there's always a potential, like whenever Alejandro wants to, he can probably play a move like bishop take knight, for example, bishop take f6, and destroy Tatev's pawn structure even further. So I think we're going to see a nice positional grind down by Alejandro in this game.
Yeah, it's certainly a more better position for white.
Yeah, we do have one more move played, pawn b5. I don't think that changes too much in the position. I'm expecting something like a3. And Alejandro will be patient, maybe try and have a long game, given that Tatev is already pretty low on time. It's moved 27, and Tatev is already under 6 minutes. So she's going to have to play a bit quicker the next several moves.
So let's see another game. Do you want to go over the draw, J.J. Ali Marandi, Robert Agasarian?
We could. That might put me to sleep, but we could take a quick look. We had an opening which comes from a pretty common line that you see a lot in scholastic chess, the Scotch variation, 4 knights after d4, take. I used to play this opening myself for both sides when I was younger, but as I became a more experienced player, I realized these positions are relatively dry, not too much to play for, and usually players who go into these lines are just looking to play safe for either side. And it seemed like neither player in this game was really going for too much, especially after knight f5 and the trade bishop for knight, leading to a position with opposite colored bishops. And this already kind of makes me a bit sleepy. So going forward even further, rooks got traded, and then there was just nothing to play for. I think they got to move 31, and then they just agreed to a draw.
So we had a nice draw. I thought it Robert is a player who did not lose any single game in this tournament. Very solid one, 8 draws and 1 win. It's do you remember having a tournament like this?
I mean, that's incredibly solid. That's a niche Giri-like in the sense that there's just so many draws. But having one win has to make it a bit nice for him, given that he finished on a +1 score, and that's a really authentic +1 score. Like only having one win and then the rest draws. So can't be too disappointed with that result, and I'm sure he's going to take away a lot of prize money.
Yes, so I see some changes in the game. Vladimir Belos against Dinara Sadoakasova. What happened? Too many moves were played.
Yeah, well, when we last looked, there was a pretty hefty material imbalance, and now material is equal, if I can count correctly. Let's go back and see what happened, because we saw white dominating the d-file. Dinara played a very sensible move, bishop e7, preventing any possibilities with rook d8. And sometimes this is a common strategy. If your opponent is dominating an open file on the board, then you just want to control any entry point along that open file. We can actually see in this position, black is controlling all of these squares, so even though white's rooks are doubled, there's no way to make them more useful. Going forward in the position, we see bishop c1, and then Dinara went for some tactics, knight take e4. I'm wondering if Vladimir just missed this move, but it seems like a simple tactical shot, leading to material equality after bishop take e4, rook d8 check, some trades occurred, and now it's queen, rook, and bishops, and some pawns for each side, but still very imbalanced.
I'm a little puzzled by the move bishop c1. I mean, what is the idea? I thought the bishop on b2 is kind of good, attacking the pawn on e5, and maybe we could do something like queen e2, queen e3, improve the queen a little bit. But bishop c1, do you think he wanted to go bishop e3, or?
It seems logical that the bishop is much better placed on e3, but I think he probably should have started with queen e2 for that reason, avoiding any knight take e4 possibilities. But we've seen Vladimir this tournament maybe missing some tactics that he should see on a better day. Reminds me of the first round where he just missed like a two-move combination that lost material. So maybe he's not in the best form. But the current position still seems very playable. If we see what happened, we have a position, it's equal material, but very imbalanced given the pawn majorities on the queen side. White has 3-on-1, but on the king side, black has 4-on-2. So there's still some fight for both sides. I'm not actually sure which player is better here.
I think it's very important for white to control the d-file. So I wonder if black can just play rook d6 and try to trade.
Yeah, rook d6 is an interesting attempt to simplify the position. We should note that queen take e5 would not be possible due to rook take d1 winning everything. So after rook d6, then it's a question, what does white do? Do you trade rooks, or do you keep rooks on the board? Maybe white could go for something like rook d5, just going after this e-pawn, given that it is fixed on the dark square, and perhaps follow up with something like bishop b2. And it does seem a bit more pleasant for white.
I think rook d5 is a strong move.
Yes. Dinara is thinking in this position, and I think it is a bit more pleasant for white just overall, given that black has two pawns pretty much fixed on dark squares, and with the presence of the dark squared bishops, it's hard to be happy as black in this position, given that white has targets to attack, and black doesn't necessarily have a clear target to attack in this position. Probably has to resort to defense.
And white really controls the d5, and the queen on e4 is amazing because it also, let's say black wants to play f5 to just gain some space. Then I can always move my queen to d5 and make another pin, control the d5 even more. It looks like black may be okay after f5 or some interesting moves, but actually black is just weakening his pawn structure and his king.
That's right. I can't be too happy in Dinara's situation. She's had a very good result so far, being, I believe, the 9th seed in the event and scoring at least 50%, but a loss today can't be the best way for her to finish the tournament.
So let's see, what else can black do? I think I want to stay a little bit more with this position because I think it's an interesting one compared to the others. Well,
queen c8 was played, so now it's white's move, and it's a question, what does white do? What's the best way to maybe push for some more advantage here? We do have a move that was played, bishop to e3, played relatively quickly, just optimizing the bishop, why not? The bishop has potential to play on both sides of the board. And now black has to constantly be worried about this b6 pawn. It is currently defended by the rook and the bishop, but it seems like white's just looking to improve. Maybe go for some eventual move like c5, but it seems like white isn't in any rush here. It's just a matter of improving even further.
Exactly. I think white can play even like queen d8, then h4, and it's very hard for black to find some good moves because you have to be careful. Let's say if okay, now it's black's turn.
Yeah. So what to do if you're Dinara?
So let's say black's play something like king g7, just a random move, and I play queen d5. Suddenly black has to decide where you want to put the bishop, and it's an important decision because either b6 is going to be weak or the bishop is going to be blocking the queen, allowing white to advance on the queen side.
That's very true. A move like bishop c7 comes to mind with the threat of rook d6. Actually, that's probably not a threat because e5 would be hanging. So it just seems like just lack of space for black. I feel a bit claustrophobic looking at this position, given that black doesn't have much room to work with and white is controlling so many key squares all over the board. There was a move played, not king g7, but bishop to e7. Brings us to the current position. And now Vladimir kind of playing with his hair there, pondering what to do next.
I feel like rook d5 is a very natural move. We are improving the rook. We don't want to have the queen in front of the rook because of the tactics that you mentioned. Maybe rook d6 can be actually a tactic here. The king is no longer on g7, so there's no check with taking the pawn. So rook d5 seems like a very natural and nice move. We are attacking the pawn on e5. We can then bring the queen to d3 to even double on the d file. Any other suggestions?
For sure. Not at the moment. I mean, I think Vladimir is going to take his time trying and milk the position, trying to get as much out of it as he can. We do have a question from the YouTube chat from Chief Tane. Does Sadua Kasova get a GM norm? I think it depends on the result of this game. I actually don't know. Maybe the people in back can do some research for us. But
I saw that her performance is
2580,
and to claim a GM norm, you have to have above 2600. So I believe if she wins this game, she should be able to claim a GM norm. But that's not confirmed. That's only speculation.
It's just speculation. Yeah, sometimes when you're close to getting a norm, there's a lot of technicalities that can come into play. I've been there many times myself. I've been trying to get the IM title. I've been close so many times, but missed it in the last round. And it takes a lot of patience and perseverance until you can get a norm.
Speaking about IM title, I already have about 11 norms. All I am missing is just rating for the past 8 years, I believe. So it's
not easy.
It's difficult.
It takes a lot of time, and you have to be persistent. I think Tatev is in the same scenario, right? She has at least 8 IM norms, and her peak rating FIDE was like 2394, and sometimes to cross the 2400 threshold, it just takes a lot of work, and you have to be consistent.
So let's look at the game of the leader, Kamil Dragon, or actually we can say the winner of the Group B. There were some changes. The pawn on b5 is no longer there. What happened?
Yeah, let's go back and see how the position reached its current state. e5 was played. I think we left off around here after e4, and I was criticizing this e-pawn that it might be a bit weak in the future, but we see within just a few moves, black was able to support the e-pawn and then played the very solidifying pawn f5, which really reinforces the pawn structure, but maybe makes the bishop a bit sad on h7. I am envisioning some ideas for black in the future, like king h8 and bishop to g8, to maybe target the d5 pawn. A few more moves have been played. b6 from white, somewhat unexpected. Looks like just a pawn sacrifice.
I just look at that and I'm trying to see what tactic is there, but I think it's just a positional sacrifice where you want to get the b file, you want to bring the rook there, you want to put pressure on c5, but still it's a pawn. Is it worth it?
A pawn is a pawn, but a half-open file is a half-open file. You don't see these positional sacrifices too often in such positions, but maybe here it makes sense given that the half-open b file is going to be very nice for white. A few more moves have been played. Bishop to a3, pressuring the pawn on c5. White now has 3 attackers between the bishop, the rook, and the queen. So this prompted black to play rook to c8. And going forward here, white played rook to c1. Now having 4 attackers, doesn't look like there's any way for white to, or for black to defend the b pawn. Maybe this was the whole idea of playing this b6 move. It prevented black from playing pawn b6.
It seems like so. It was just a temporary sacrifice where white pushed the pawn to b6, forcing the queen to go there, and then putting pressure on c-file and c5 pawn, and just getting the pawn back.
Oh, that's right. And bishop g6 was played, and now it's white's move. Sergey is thinking, should he take the pawn next, or is there maybe something else to do in the position? It seems like the logical move is bishop takes c5.
I don't really see other option.
Yep, so maybe we can speculate some line here. Bishop takes c5, bishop takes c5, rook takes c5. There could be a lot of trades resulting in some kind of rook-bishop ending where you would probably have to favor white, given that black's pawns, especially these this pawn on f5 and pawn on e4 are fixed on light squares, and we've seen this theme so many times. Bishops of the same color. In the endgame, you want your pawns on a different color than the bishop.
And one thing is the bishops, but also look at the pieces. I mean, rook on a8 is just so passive. The bishop on g6 is not great. And compared to that, the white rook on c5 is very active. And the bishop on g2 has quick future on, let's say, bishop f1, bishop b5, to be active and control some nice squares.
Yeah, I think it seems like Sergey is playing for a win. Maybe fighting, if not for first place, he's fighting for a share of maybe second or third place. It would be a tough finish if Kamil loses his last round but still wins the tournament. But sometimes that's the case in these long tournaments.
So let's switch gears and go back to tournament A. We did not spend much time there. Maybe Peter Prohaska and Jaro Jerebuk.
Well, this game's certainly heating up. The last move, bishop d5 played. Seems like Peter is still the one pushing for a win despite the time deficit. I really admire white's activity in this position, but I'm counting material. Last time we were looking, white seemed to be up a pawn, but now white's down a pawn, but perhaps just is going for an attack against the king side.
Yes, because the king is weak, and let's speculate if black takes bishop takes d5, knight takes d5. Now we are putting pressure on the pinned piece on f6. The knight is hanging, and if black plays a move, let's say bishop g7. I thought there is rook b8
Just
checkmate
rook b8
or problem,
over, right?
but actually there's maybe knight g8 and black is fine.
Knight g8. I forgot
So
about
sad.
this move. But can we continue in a happy way? Maybe knight e7?
And losing the queen?
Uh-oh. Yeah, I forgot about bishop take d4. That's rough. So rook take g8 maybe, but that doesn't seem to work either.
Oh, that's interesting.
Rook take g8,
Yes.
king take g8, knight e7.
King f7, only move.
And both queens are attacked, but the knight is also attacked on e7.
We can go for something like queen c4, try to take the rook, but there is also
things could
queen
simplify
e6.
here.
Okay, maybe this idea is not great, but we see some chances on the diagonal pinning the knight and using the very active rook on b8. But we have a move, rook c2 happened.
Rook c2 feels like a better choice, not allowing white to exert too much pressure against this knight on f6. And now it's white's move. What to do? You're down a pawn. Looks like a fun position, though. It's just a question how to make progress. I
feel like knight e6 maybe is a good move. If if black's gonna take the knight, I'm gonna have pair of bishop. I'll be very happy. The light square bishop will be attacking pawn on f5. There is certainly compensation.
I like that idea. Yeah, just knight e6 going for positional play. We should note that every single black pawn is isolated in position. White has beautiful pawn structure on the king side, given that king has a very nice shelter on from g1. So maybe instead of going for just the crashing breakthrough, white's just maybe going for some positional endgame where he can grind down the black side.
So our prediction is here 96. Is there any other move? We have to know that Peter has only less than 5 minutes, and too many moves happened. So rook c2, rook b8 happened in the game.
B8, so maybe going for the attack. And then bishop g7 played, breaking the pin, but creating
almost
another
checkmate,
pin.
rook takes g8.
Almost checkmate, you said.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, if the knight is not on f6, it would be checkmate. But okay, black is employing this cocoon mechanism. He's just trying to huddle in the ball and survive until the weather gets better. But I mean, what to do in this position as white? How do you break through? It just seems like black's setup is really solid on the king side.
And we can note interesting variation for less experienced players. They can think about queen takes f6 to really go for the checkmate. But we do have to be careful. So let's say queen takes the queen takes f6, queen takes f6. There is this checkmate, rook takes g8. But we have to be careful about the choices that black has after queen takes f6, because after bishop takes f6, the queen is actually defending the bishop on g8, so there is no checkmate and the sacrifice is more like a loss.
Well, there have been more moves played. Let's get to the current position because, okay, of course, queen take f6 not played. Bishop take g8 was played. Pretty forcing move, and after knight take g8, very simple, queen d5. Threatening mate in one. How to defend for black.
So I have to move the bishop away, probably something like bishop a1, such an awkward move.
Bishop a1. Running across the board, allowing the queen to defend the knight, but this cannot be pleasant for black. It just seems like white has so much potential with all the pieces on the board. The queen on d5, rook on b8, maybe the bishop can on f4 can get into play.
Yeah, maybe bishop
well
can
as
just
knight.
take bishop takes d6, threatening going back to bishop e5 and attacking the king.
That's incredibly logical. Yeah, bishop take d6 just seems so crushing. It doesn't seem like black has any counterplay, just given the safety of the white king on g1. So we can see Yarrow is thinking in this position, but there's not too many moves to consider. I'm sure he's just considering where to move the bishop from g7.
Yeah, interesting variation here. I am looking at some chances with maybe bishop a1. Let's try that. Bishop takes d6. Now rook c1 check.
King h2.
King h2. And now I thought maybe just h6. Just to make space for it. I know it's a little uncomfortable.
h6 would make me happy as white, given that, okay, now white has pretty much a free move. Looking here, maybe knight e6, just bring the knight towards the king side. Still going for bishop to e5. And, I mean, it just seems very unpleasant for black.
Yeah, this is difficult. So let's move back. Maybe no check on c1. Maybe I can go something like queen g7.
Queen g7, but again, I just want to play knight e6. I want to prepare this bishop e5 move.
But now I have... No, I don't have anything.
I'm also considering ideas like knight d8 to f7. It just seems like white's pieces are crawling all over black in this
I mean,
position.
we can see how these pieces are just having perfect cooperation. All are very active. The rook on b8, pinning the knight. The bishop is very strong. The weak dark squares around the black king. This is one of the positions that is very hard to play for black.
I think we can put our money heavily on Peter for this game. Peter hasn't had the best performance this tournament, but a win in the last round is always nice. I usually like to think that even if you have a bad tournament or not the best tournament, if you win the last round, at least it leaves a good taste in your mouth.
And that will be the first win actually for Peter. He has 6 draws and 2 losses, so this will be first win in the last round, definitely leaving a nice taste about the tournament.
So let's move on. Let's see how the other games are unfolding. Looking for the Vasif-Darbeli game, we should keep an eye on this game as it is the most crucial game for the tournament. Some moves have been played since we last left. I think we last left after Vasif played a4 on move 28. And let's see what Sam was up to. He went for queen d6, perhaps just centralizing the queen. b5 played, Vasif going for the minority attack. Queen c5, so Sam appears to have found a better square for the queen, maybe going for x-ray vision along this diagonal, also hitting the bishop on c4. Vasif retreated with the bishop. A very quiet move, king h7. Maybe the king is better on h7 than any other square.
And again, black has time. Black can just move around. It is white who has difficulties finding good spots, good squares.
That's very true. And after king h1, I mean, the ball is still in Sam's court. Sometimes this is the case when you're attacking. you're the one who has to make progress in the position. And I would think that's why Sam is lower on time. He's the one searching for ideas, while Vasif is just the one kind of waiting around, playing a move like King H1, really putting the question, how is Black breaking through?
And I want to just show a nice idea. So let's say White was not going to play King H1. Let's just take back this move. And White would play a bad move, but let's see it. Bishop B1. Now Black has a great tactical choice. Knight takes F3 here.
I was going to tell the viewers to pause the stream so they could find the move, but yeah, Knight take F3.
So let's pause. What happens after Rook takes F3?
Yeah, Rook take F3, Black to move and destroy White. It's very simple. Queen take E3, Rook take E3, and checkmate on F1.
So we see White has some issues that he has to deal with. So that's why he played King H1 to make sure the king is out of that diagonal. There are no problems on F3, because anytime you take on F3 right now, I can take back the queen on C5. So this way we are keeping the king a little safe and hoping for the best.
Oh, for sure. I'm curious here, is Sam maybe fathoming the break G4 in this position? Has he optimized everything where now it's time to go for the breakthrough, given the king on H1, maybe not defending the rook on F2 enough? Would this lead to anything?
So let's see. So if I take the pawn, I mean, I have to consider that,
That's
because if
probably
I
the
don't
most
take
key
F3,
move.
it's just such a
The idea would be
pawn.
to take on F2.
Rook
take
takes,
F2, Rook take F2,
queen takes.
and then Queen C1 check, but I'm not sure if this is leading to anything.
So bishop's F1.
Bishop F1. The argument here would be the queen and knight combination is better than the queen bishop combination, but perhaps we can see that the black king is left pretty unsafe on H7. White has ideas of simply queen F7, so maybe this wouldn't be the best continuation for black.
But Black has some choices like this. Now, I do want to stay with this game because it's very interesting, but I'm looking at what's happening in the Renat Alexander Indic games. So can we just go there?
White's king very precariously placed on D2, and Rook D8 check played. We were looking earlier, we saw White was down the exchange for 2 pawns. Now we see White is just up 2 pawns, but getting massively attacked.
So can we go maybe back to move like
Let's see how the
33
game
to see what
unfolded.
happened?
So White did go for this 95 move. I think we last left after bishop E2. Lots of moves have been played. We should zoom to the current position because Renat is severely low on time. And oh no, our score sheet's being signed. Did Renat? I don't have the results yet. Mike Kummer there, about to put kings in the center of the board. Looks like
Renat does not look very happy.
is not too happy about the result. Indic did win the game, though the kings on dark squares in the center. Not the best tournament for Renat.
So let's just see what happened, because there was a very nice sacrifice, I think, for Black to give an exchange.
Yeah, it seems like Black was just invading on the king side, going for this killer move, Queen G2, forcing White to play this awkward defensive move. Then Rook D2, it just seems like Black is having all the fun. Bishop C1, and then beautiful sacrifice here, Rook take E2, King take E2, and then it's just a forcing line after Queen G4.
This is such a nice
king has nowhere
positional
to hide.
sacrifice where Black is taking control of all the light squares around the king, and suddenly the king is in trouble.
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide and there's nowhere to run. So, I mean, Renat tried running with the king, but did not last too long after King C3 and Queen E2. Looks like mate is unstoppable. Queen C2 mate is a threat, and just look at White's pieces doing nothing to help defend against the mating attack.
So let's look what would happen were White to play not King D2 but King E1.
At King E1, perhaps another try, but I'm assuming that
Bishop C2
there's something in this
possibly?
position. Perhaps Bishop C2, is there anything more direct? Maybe just a simple Rook to D8?
And then Bishop... Oh, then you force me to play Bishop D2 and then you have Bishop C2, right? So let's see, Bishop D2 to preventing that checkmate.
And then Bishop, Bishop C2, why not? Going for this Queen D1 move. Just seems like, especially in these situations with opposite color bishops, it's so hard for White to defend against all these light squares.
Very nice tactics, very nice positional sacrifice. Rook takes e2. Alexander Indic is finishing the tournament with a nice win. And we have another result where Peter Prohaska won again Jaro Jerebuk. So Peter Prohaska did score the last win.
Let's
in the
just
tournament.
glance at how the game ended. Going back, it just seems so fun for white after queen to d5. Bishop f6 was played, and then knight e8. Beautiful move going on the last rank. And after rook to b2, rook a8. Seems like Jaro had enough in this position, just given that white has all the pieces going for the attack. Knight take f6 being the clear threat, d6 pawn hanging. I'm assuming that knight take d6 and knight f7 is also a threat. Nothing to hope for is black in this position.
So let's say if black played bishop c3 just to move away.
So bishop
just to
c3 here.
Yes, you take.
Probably just knight take d6 is good enough to win.
And knight takes f7, yeah.
And knight f7 or bishop e5 coming. There's a funny line just to demonstrate some smothered mate. Let's say black plays a waiting move, bishop e5, trade on e5, queen g7. This could be one potential final mate in the position.
I mean, this is sometimes what happens. If you have active pieces, you are moving away, moving toward the king, just there are tactics happening that you don't have to see at the beginning. They just happen there because of having such great pieces.
Exactly. And we have another result in Group B, Alejandro defeating Tatev Abrahamian. We can see neither player at the board there. I think like 2 or 3 results came in there within just within the span of just a minute. Maybe just 2 of them, but let's see the final position going forward here. I mean, the 2 bishops just seem to be so dominant, and we can see that Alejandro is already up a pawn. It looks like Tatev went for the sacrifice of the d-pawn, trying to free up some squares, but maybe she just blundered after d4. Did she miss bishop take d4? Simple back rank mate tactics.
I mean, it is possible. Again, it's the last round. Players are playing 9 days in a row, long games. You can blunder. It can happen.
And it seemed like Alejandro's endgame technique, very stable here, just 2 bishops against 2 knights. We can see how overpowering white's position is, given the activity and given just the natural coordination that the 2 bishops have in such positions.
I mean, very nice position to illustrate the power of bishops, how they are really strong by controlling so many diagonals and restricting knights from any movements.
Exactly, and it just seemed like black has no hope in this position. Tatev resigned given the pressure that white has in the position, as everything seems to be targeted, not to mention the king on g8. Still some looming ideas of back rank mates. So tough finish for Tatev.
So we have last 3 games playing. Let's take a look at Sergei Matsenko against Kamil Dragun. We may have a rook endgame there.
Yeah, and as we look at the Group B winner, Kamil Dragun, both players are actually getting relatively low on time. Kamil is under 5 minutes now, with 7 moves to go until time is added on the clock. Queen takes e5 just played. And if I'm counting correctly, white is up a pawn. And after queen takes e5, we should note the rook is hanging on e4, but if queen takes e5, white has an intermediate rook take e8, and then rook takes e5. It seems like white's playing for a win, but you never know with these rook endings. It could liquidate into a draw.
I mean, white has the pawn up, so black will first need to recapture the pawn, and then the a5 is weak. I think this would be a difficult rook endgame actually to play for black, and I see that black did not go for this endgame, and Kamil chose to play queen g6.
Yeah, queen g6, certainly an idea in the position, given, look at white's king, not the most sheltered piece on g1, given the pawn on g4. And now black is both targeting the pawn on g4 and the rook on e4. I do like this move. I mean, if your opponent's king is less safe, keep queens on the board.
Absolutely, and put some pressure on the pawn on g4, on the rook. Now it's Sergei to decide what to do. I mean, it's not that easy to... Probably rook f4, rook c4. The rook is attacked. I do have to move it. I cannot even defend it because that would not save the rook. We have moves coming.
So rook f4 was played, and
queen
then
d3.
Queen d3. Seems like white has a lot of weaknesses to worry about. I'm wondering if Kamil wants to finish with icing on the cake and finish strong with a win. Seems like he's pretty much forced to go for active play in this position. Sergey currently thinking this pawn on e3 is undefended, the pawn on d5, potential weakness. Seems like white's under some pressure here.
I wonder if white can go rook cf1 for the 7th rank. So let's say rook cf1, you take with queen on e3, take,
Could be some
and
trades.
rook f7. You always like to have rooks on 7th rank.
The
So
7 heaven, we saw a couple games yesterday.
yesterday that was a big theme, so today we can try to repeat it, because my goal is to hit the pawn on b7, you have to defend it, and then I want to move the rook and bring another rook to the 7th rank.
I'm wondering if some of these lines could just like turn into a draw if rook d8. Let's say you take on f7, rook take here. Some of these lines feel a bit drawish after a move like rook d2. I feel like white probably would have to bail out with some kind of perpetual check.
So let's take a look at the current standings. We had many games that had finished. What is the current standing in Group B, Group A?
Yeah, Group A, we only have the one game still pending, Vasif Durabaily against Sam Sevian. All the other games appear to have finished, and if Vasif wins the game, of course, he leapfrogs Varakobian to finish in first place, but he is the one defending, so if he can hold on for a draw, he'll force a playoff against Var, but if Sam can win, then he'll have the playoff against Var.
Yes, it's the last game, but a very crucial game. It decides who is the winner. If there is a playoff, well, it's nice to have such an ending where it's not clear who is actually the winner until the very, very last round, game.
It's true, and what do you do when you're in Var's situation? I mean, he's just maybe sitting back, sipping some iced tea, watching the battle being played out, and whoever Var plays will maybe be a bit tired given that it's such a long and intense battle.
Yeah, before the broadcast, I just saw him upstairs and he was just talking to players, playing some chess. Maybe he just wants to be relaxed and ready to focus again if there is a playoff.
Sure. We should take a look at the game between Vasif and Sam because things have changed. Looks like Sam went for some kind of breakthrough. Or did Vasif go for the breakthrough? Let's see what's going on here. We left after king h1, and players are in time trouble. They have about 4 moves to make until move 40. After queen to e7, g3. I don't think we were expecting this. Vasif Durabaily going for the breakthrough with f4, perhaps trying to destabilize the knight on d4, and also create some more open lines to get to the black king.
Yeah, we were saying that maybe white wants to not make such moves like h3, g3 to weaken the position around the king. On the other hand, like going for h3, f4, it allows us to put pressure on the knight on d4 or to advance the pawn to f5, which brings us more space. So it's a very nice aggressive takeover of the position.
I really like how Vasif has handled this, and it seems like maybe he's not worse anymore given that the position is opening up. It doesn't seem like black's pawn on e5 is going to stay there much longer. And if the position opens up even more, the bishop could be superior to the knight in some future cases.
So what are our predictions for black here?
I do want to note, it's very strange that Vasif is away from the board with less than 5 minutes on the clock. We see Sam just played his last move. It looks like he captured the queen on g3. Having trouble making that out. Yeah, queen take g3 was played.
Vasif is back near the board, recapturing the queen.
Immediately. And now white has kind of fixed the pawn structure, has some nice kingside pawn island. Meanwhile, look at Sam's pawn structure, pawns scattered all over the place. And there's some possibility that Vasif could be playing for win in this game.
But we do have to keep in mind that the knight on d4 is still very strong and the bishop on d3 is staring at its own bishop. So the question is how to play for black here if I'm not going to for sure take the pawn on f4 to make 2 connected passed pawns. I see that rook g7 just happened, attacking the pawn on g3.
Rook g7 played, Sam standing, hovering over the board as Vasif is pondering his next move, taking a sip of water. Now Sam has initiative here, that's a good point, and there might be a new target in the position. The rooks appear to be shifting over files, and this g3 pawn is a bit backwards given it can't move forward due to the pawn on h5. And now it's a question what to do as Vasif. Maybe the simple king h2?
Or what if I take the pawn on e5?
Just going for trades. Pawn take e5.
Because at least this time the knight is not defended on d4 anymore. E6 can be a future. I can go for promotion at some point, and I do want to trade rooks because I feel my rooks were stuck on the f file for a very long time.
Yeah, so we could speculate some line here. If pawn take e5, rook take f2, rook take f2, rook take g3, Sam wins the pawn back, attacks the bishop. Bishop would probably have to move, let's say bishop c4. It seems like ugly pawn structure for both sides, but maybe I would have to choose white here, just given that the bishop is usually more effective in these situations with pawns on both sides of the board.
And the e5 pawn looks scary a little bit, don't you think?
e5 pawn, yeah. I mean, with the threat of pawn e6, ideas of rook f7, I'm sure Vasif is considering this. But Sam appears to be pretty comfortable just kind of walking around. I mean, maybe he's nervous, maybe he's just pacing, not sure what's going on. But Vasif to move, both sides, just over 3 minutes left. Any other moves Vasif can be considering other than pawn take e5?
So you said king h2. So let's see if white plays king h2, maybe black can respond with rook fg8, probably the idea to put more pressure on g3, hit the pawn, try to take it.
Yeah, it just seems maybe simple for black to play in this position. White would then have to choose a move like rook g2 or rook to g1. Let's say rook to g2. But then maybe Sam could hit white with this move pawn h4, and there's just so much pressure against this pawn on g3.
And Vasif has less than 3 minutes, so he's still thinking he may not want to go for pawn takes e5. So what else is there if not pawn takes e5 and not king h2?
Yeah, Sam just pacing back and forth. I don't see this too often where like you're in time trouble, but you're just walking back and forth from the board. I'm sure Sam is continuing to calculate. Strong grandmasters can do that where they don't have to be looking at the position to calculate ahead. I'm sure he has a position cemented in his mind. Maybe it's somewhat annoying for Vasif for his opponent to just be walking back and forth like that.
Yeah, he has to make a tough decision here, and he sees the player walking around, and we see that he's only 90
his
seconds.
Time is dwindling, yeah. It looks like this clock might be slightly inaccurate. I saw he was having less than 1 minute and 30 seconds on that shot. So not much time to think, and these situations are difficult when you're in a critical moment and you just have to rely on instinct and you don't have that much time to calculate.
So I'm very curious what Vasif's going to choose. So let's stay with this game and hope that Vasif's going to play fast. I mean, he has to. I see 1 minute and 13 seconds.
I mean, there's only 3 more moves to make until move 40. I mean, if I had to put money on the next move, I think this line with f take e5 is most likely just given the resulting position, given the opening of the f-file. And really all Vasif needs is a draw in this game to force a playoff. So, I mean, he doesn't want to take too much risk and risk potentially losing this game.
And he already spent 4 minutes on this move, and finally he made a move. What did he play?
Yeah, it's hard to see.
It does not look he took the pawn. He played rook g2, I believe.
Rook to g2, maybe just going for defense. I think we can expect rook g8 from Sam. We forgot to mention, though, that if black plays rook g8 in this position, white could then consider taking on e5, and it might lead to some slightly different scenario.
So what's the difference? So let's see, rook g8, take on e5.
I'd probably expect rook take g3 here.
I do want to trade the
g3,
rooks.
rook take g3, then the bishop is hit on d3.
So I go bishop c4.
Similar to the other line.
It's a very interesting line. Let's say black plays here rook c3 to hit the bishop. I can play e6.
That's a nice idea. When your pawn is far enough advanced, sometimes you don't care about any of your other pieces, you just care about queening your pawn.
Exactly, because if the rook takes the bishop now, I play e7 and that pawn is unstoppable.
That's a very nice line, the knight and the rook being completely out of play. So, yeah, maybe Vasif is going for a line like this where pawn on e5, even though there's double pawns on the e-file, the advanced e-pawn could spell some trouble for black.
So now it's Sam who is to move, and he has 2 minutes to decide what to do. He's not walking around the board anymore. He's thinking hard what to play now.
Yeah, and it seems like a critical moment for Sam. I mean, we were expecting rook f g8, but I'm wondering, is he considering any other options here? It's a difficult position. I mean, it seems like there's some options. Maybe there's no immediate threat from white. It's just a question how to continue as black. Do you try and force matters? Do you play some improving move? Maybe a move like c5 or a5 just to put the ball in white's court.
I just want to make sure that we stress the pawns. I mean, look at the pawns, how isolated they are. They're just so weak.
Yeah, I mean, black's pawn structure, not ideal. But, I mean, it's all about kind of the long-term positions which could be reached. And I feel like a lot of these positions, the bishop in the long term could outperform the knight. But as we saw in the middle game, the knight was superior.
And we do have a move. Sam played h4.
h4, unexpected. This seems like, at first it seems like a pawn sacrifice, but it is attempting to perhaps win the pawn in f4. And it looks like Vasif quickly captured on h4, which leads to some kind of trade, with f4 currently being hanging.
I must say that I'm surprised by this variation, because if Sam knight now takes the rook, king takes the rook, I mean, we won't have the connected pawns as wide as we wanted to. So probably
That's true.
Pawn takes on f4, or rook takes
Pawn
on
take
f4.
f4.
I don't know.
But, I mean, I feel like white is still the one to choose in this position, given the bishop versus knight scenario. We're seeing this line being played out. Rook take g2 played. We can expect king take g2. And then it's a question for Sam. Do you take on f4 with the pawn or the rook?
I mean, usually the rule is not to trade pieces when you are material down. The material is equal here, but the bishop has better potential. I feel like the cooperation between the rook and bishop can be stronger than the cooperation between rook and knight. So I think taking with the rook.
Well, actually,
better.
the move was played. It was move 40, e take f4. So both players now have an extra half hour on the clock. And these situations are sometimes tricky to cool down after somewhat intense time situation. And now Vasif has time to calculate. The position has changed drastically. And now it's going to be a whole new battle. What's going on here, given the imbalanced pawn structure, given bishop versus knight scenario?
When
I
see
do like Vasif's chances.
When I see the future of the white rook to go to b1, b7, and together with the bishop too, and the pawn coming with e5, e6, I think white is the favorite one here.
I would have to choose white, just given the potential and the position. But sometimes these positions are easy to, or it may be easy to evaluate, but not always easy to play, given that, okay, you have to be somewhat accurate. The knight can be very tricky, especially when it's centralized. We might see some eventual move from black, like c5, to cement the knight on d4. And this pawn on f4, for the time being, it's a pretty strong passed pawn. White can't easily win it. The knight is supporting this f3 square, so we might see f3 played at some point. Meanwhile, black's king could walk in as well. So it's not, maybe not so easy as we originally thought for whites.
So most likely Vasif is going to take his time here. Finally, he's happy to make move 40, or maybe he may play soon. Anyway, I would switch gears to the game Vladimir Veles and Dinara Sadoakasova. There's another endgame, rook bishop, but white seems to have some very strong pawns going for promotion.
Yeah, no, this position takes a moment for me to absorb what's going on, but as I'm realizing, like, these pawns just seem unstoppable. Like, what is Dinara going to do about a6 or b6 coming next, especially with this rook on d7? It seems just about hopeless for black.
I mean, we can know that the pawn on g3 is kind of advanced, the pawn on e5 may be coming, but that seems too slow.
I really don't see any hope for the black side here. But maybe we can have some fun and play it out. One move that comes to mind is bishop take h4, with the idea of rook f6 and rook f2.
Okay, so let's say I move b6.
So b6, rook f6. And now I'm threatening rook to f2.
Okay, you know what? I start with a6.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Tricky.
seeing my idea, a6, making sure the pawn is on the a file, not the b file. I will still go for the same idea.
So a7.
7, rook f2.
King g1.
King g1. Uh-huh. Okay, I'll take your bishop. You make
and
a queen?
Yeah.
And then I'll check.
And I have only moved king g2.
King g2, rook b2. I'm just hoping for some perpetual here.
So I will go probably king h3.
King h3, g2. Oh, you can even
And-
play queen take g2.
But
right?
now I also have king f8.
Or queen f8.
And we have a result for the game Sergei Matsenko against Vladimir Belas? No.
No, against Camille
Dragon.
That is a draw. So we're going to have Camille, the winner of Group B, in the studio very shortly. Maybe nothing to play for either side?
I mean, we did think that Sergei was the favorite one, but Queen traded. Yeah, this seems like a safe draw. I mean, Camille, very great tournament. No losses, only wins and draws.
Yeah, it seemed like Sergei was maybe the one playing for a win at some point, but queens did get traded. And I think this game maybe supports the point that all rook endings are drawn. But congratulations, Camille, finishing the tournament with a very solid game. And it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts about how he was able to kind of cope throughout the tournament to win a very strong event like this.
And also, what did he think about like b6 move? Because I thought it was a very nice idea of Sergei.
That was certainly a nice idea, yeah. So let's move on. Let's stay with the games which are still going. Do you want to go back to the Dinara game? Or do you
Yeah,
want
I
to
see
look at
some
the
changes.
Sam7
The
game?
bishops are traded. b6 happened. So either the game will be over soon, or we have a rook endgame and we think it's a draw. So
because all rook endings are drawn. I'm trying to find the game, but it disappeared from me.
uh-oh.
Dinara,
It's
where
here.
are you? Oh, okay, here it is. So the bishops did get traded. How did that happen?
So let's get back. Let's see.
Well, first of all, queens got traded. Oh, Dinara played e4. So going for the advance of the past e pawn. But this also seems pretty hopeless, just b6 played. What to do in this position? I mean, let's see, b6, the pawn's racing down the board on the queen side for white. And is there any sort of counterplay for black here? I mean, the pawn on e4 doesn't seem to have too much hope, but maybe we can speculate. Okay, some line like e3, but white could even play something like rook e7, attack the pawn in e3. What is black doing in this position? e2, rook take e2. No, this is just this just seems lost for black in this position. If we refresh the board to the current position, Dinara is thinking here. She has 25 minutes to ponder maybe what went wrong in the game, but really not too much to hope for from this position. So I think a lot of the games are done. We do have, okay, we see Dinara there thinking. We still have the Sam7 against Vasif Darbeli battle in Group A, but we'll be set very shortly for an interview with Camille Dragon, the winner of Group B. Let me find that game here. Let's see. Camille Dragon. Well, before I find the game, I think I can find Camille in the studio. Welcome, Camille, and congratulations on a very impressive result.
Thank you.
Clear first. What were your thoughts coming into the day? I mean, there was some possibility if you lost your game and Andrei Sukopin won his game that there would be a playoff. Were you maybe worried about that scenario, or what was your psychology?
Not very much. I was pretty confident. After some games, I was more and more confident during the tournament because I started playing better, I think, after some first rounds.
Mm-hmm. And I know you were playing someone who you've probably gotten to know over the last several days, Sergei Matsenko. You were roommates with during the tournament. We were maybe in the commentary studio. We were expecting a quick draw in this game, but were you the one playing for the win? Was Sergei playing for a win? It was a bit hard to tell.
I think Sergei was playing for a win because he wanted to improve a little his score, and for me, draw was enough to win the tournament. So I was happy with draw.
Fair enough. I mean, that makes perfect sense for you. Take us through the game. It seemed like a somewhat unusual opening, this idea very early on knight c6, which you don't see too often, the knight going in front of the c-pawn. Was this something that you prepared?
Yeah, it's quite a very rare line, but I'm playing it from time to time just to surprise my opponent.
Fair enough. And I do want to go forward to the middle game position. It seemed very imbalanced and seemed like maybe you were under some pressure.
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
It looked that after exchanging on d2, he has some advantage, but it's not so easy after. I think queen b6 was a good move.
Yeah, queen b6 seemed to maybe just stabilize black's
Yeah,
position.
I think a4 was also the best, and rook fd8 is... I don't want to do this move. I would prefer to play rook ad8, but there is bishop c3 always.
Bishop c3 with this a-pawn being a potential target in the position.
Yeah, that's the problem with queen on b6, that I cannot play b6 and defend everything. But I was always a little late, like everything was hanging there. Bishop on g2 was attacking b7.
Well, it just seemed like white had so much better harmony with the pieces, and you had to kind of do what you needed to do to hold on to the position.
Yeah, maybe here d5 was interesting, but after d5 I always play e5 and I try to close the position. And after that my plan is queen c7, b6. Maybe if he wants to play like, he has to play like e4, rook f1 to play f4, but maybe I can counter him like by f5. I was
F5.
considering it.
Yeah, it would be an interesting line.
Yeah, first probably queen c7 to defend
Queen c7 to defend e5, right?
First probably queen c7, b6 to defend everything. And after that maybe I would think about f5.
I see. So going back to what happened in the game, I mean, it seemed like it just had to take like a few moves for black to consolidate the position.
Yeah, e5 is like very tricky. I already wanted to play bishop f8.
Bishop f8 in this position? Or in this position?
In this position, yeah.
Yeah, bishop
I
f8.
was almost played it, but I realized that e5 is interesting. Because this looks like after d5, there was like, I thought that I have a trick, ed, bishop d5, bishop e4, but unfortunately there is bishop f7.
Bishop take f7, king take f7?
And queen f4.
Queen f4 and then winning back the piece.
Yeah.
So you opted for a safer variation.
After bishop d5, I have to play like...
I do want to interrupt you for a moment. Belis did defeat Dinara Saduakasova, so not the best performance overall for Belis, but he did have a nice win in the final round.
Yeah, I think he had a very nice ending of the tournament. He won 2 last games.
Yeah, sometimes...
no, yesterday he drew.
Oh, yesterday he drew. So, but sometimes you have the momentum shift or maybe a surge in motivation to play some better chess.
Yeah.
Let's stick with this game. I do want to get to the moment. It was this interesting moment where white went for this b6 move, preventing you from playing b6. Was this something that you were expecting?
Yeah, I was calculating this line, but I wasn't sure that he can play like that, but it appeared that he can, because he is on time to take on c5 always.
Right, and just seemed like perhaps the trade of pawns trying to lead to a slightly better endgame for white.
Yeah, I think b6 was his only chance, because if I would be able to play b6 myself, I don't have problems at all.
Exactly.
And
so
g4 was here very interesting. I didn't expect this move.
Yeah, g4 seems to come out of nowhere, makes the game very sharp.
I thought about bishop h3 here instead of g4. Like to have, after exchanging on c5, everything to not allow me to play bishop e8, because there will be hanging on f5.
I see.
But I wanted to play here king f7. But maybe here g4 or taking on c5, everything. We can take everything, and at the end I have king f6.
I see.
I should be fine here.
So yeah, it seems a bit tricky. I mean, it's not easy for white to get a clear advantage in these lines. Going forward, what happened in the game?
After g4 is getting like very messy. I didn't know what to do. It was already time trouble. So.
And what's your psychology knowing that you already won the event and you still have a game to play and it's unclear? How do you just focus on playing the game and not just sit back and relax and accept your your money.
It's like very bad feeling to win the tournament, but to lose last
Exactly.
game. So I didn't need like extra motivation.
For sure. Okay, so that's good that you're just motivated by just by playing good chess and not by maybe the external factors.
Yeah, it's like the same as when you are doing like very badly in the tournament, but you win like two last games. It's always like for Vladimir. I'm sure that he feels much better now.
I understand. Yeah. So going forward, it seemed like things simplified
Yeah,
pretty quickly.
after Queen C5, Rook E8, Rook E8, Rook C5, Rook E3, Rook A5.
Wait, sorry, is this a line that happened in the game, or this is?
No. Because instead of Queen G6, maybe I could take, but it was like
yeah.
unpleasant to defend this rookie.
Yeah, we were actually looking at some line like
It
this.
should be a draw, but I don't know.
Maybe it's just not necessary to go into.
Yeah, Queen G6, it was like active try, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like we admired this move given that White's king is less safe, and we were thinking maybe even Black could play for something given the weaknesses in White's pawns.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I'm playing for a win.
Right.
Because if he doesn't exchange the queens, I will have attack, some kind of attack at least.
Absolutely. So yeah, Queen D4, and then at this point after Rook take E3, it just seemed very drawish.
Yeah, the rook is a draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going forward to the final position.
Yeah, I think Queen G6 was better practical try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, nice finish for you. Congratulations again. I mean, what does it mean for you winning a tournament like this? I'm sure getting some nice prize fund or prize money and gaining some rating points. What are your future plans going into the summer?
I'm going tomorrow to Chicago for Chicago Open, and after that I'm going back to my country, to Poland, for the vacation. But it's very nice that I was able to win this tournament, because I wasn't confident before the tournament at all, because I didn't practice much, I didn't play much. Like I played, I think, only a couple games in this year, so it's like I wanted to just remind how to play chess by playing here and in Chicago, but I'm surprised that I was doing so well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it just comes down to the mental form that you have during an event, and it seemed like you were very on form, some very beautiful games. So congratulations and best of luck over the summer.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more coverage. And again, congratulations to Group B champion, Grandmaster Camille Dragon.
A moment comes in chess when you need to test yourself at a different level. Chess24 Premium offers the tools that you need to reach your maximum potential. From hundreds of interactive video lessons to becoming part of the Chess24 community. You can analyze with friends or coach your students live. You get 24/7 coverage of chess news and events, access to premium analysis and commentary, and the chance to interact with grandmasters and other top players and coaches. Get advice from the best and even challenge them to a battle. Be the best chess player you can be. It's time to level up your game with Chess24 Premium membership.
This August, the best chess players in the world are coming to St. Louis for the Grand Chess Tour. The St. Louis Rapid and Blitz and Sinkfield Cup tournaments will feature the world's best right here in St. Louis. St. Louis Chess Club is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and these tournaments will be a highlight you won't want to miss. For tickets and more information, go to stlouischessclub.org.
There's a weekend vacation, a one-tank trip in a nearby city you won't want to skip. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton. There's museums full of art and super fun slides, upside-down concretes, twisty-turny rides, houses full of magic, some with butterflies, gardens growing flowers, parks with giant eyes. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 2018 Summer Chess Classic. I'm International Master Eric Rosen, joined back with Women's Grandmaster Katerina Nemcova. Welcome back, Katerina.
Thank you. We had a very great game. I actually just talked to Sergey Matsenko upstairs, and he said that he was very happy. I mean, he thought he's okay after Queen G6 and maybe playing for a win. Kamil was saying he's playing for a win in that position. That's very interesting to see both Grandmasters being happy with the same position.
I mean, that's what we want to see towards the end of the tournament, especially given the situation. Kamil was happy with the draw, but when he's playing for a win himself, we know it's more entertaining for the viewers, and it just leads to a better finish for everyone.
So let's move on to the last game of the tournament, and a crucial game, Vasif Dora-Bailey against Sam Savian. They're both playing for playoff, or maybe Vasif for the win in the tournament.
That's right, and this is the only game remaining between the two groups. A lot on the line on this game. If Vasif wins, he just clinches first, but if Sam draws or wins, then there will be a playoff involving Varuj and Akobian. So let's get to the current position. Sam has lunged forward with this move pawn f3. And I'm curious, in this position, is this pawn on f3, is it a strength or a weakness? And the king can come to g3, the bishop can come to e4. It looks like it's a lot more weak than it is strong, given that white has the potential to attack the pawn with all of his pieces.
But surprisingly, we have a move, and Vasif played rook g1.
Rook to g1. Interesting idea. Not going for the pawn, but going for some rook g6 idea.
And possibly even rook f6.
So rook g6, rook f6, maybe going for the rook trade. Very interesting idea.
Because the idea is, if the rooks are out and we do get the white king on e3, then we are attacking the knight and attacking the pawn. So let's just see, let's say, black plays something like a5.
So some waiting move, rook to g6.
King h5.
And the king, of course, doesn't want to go to h7, given a plethora of discovered checks. So king h5 would need to be played.
I see an interesting option here, that white can actually try to play rook g7 and go for a tricky checkmate on h7.
How does black stop the checkmate?
Good question. Probably rook h8, only move.
Yeah, but rook h8, it's such a sad move. It seems like Vasif should be very happy here, given the rook on h8, completely passive piece. Maybe a simple move like king to g3, and it just seems like black is stuck. White
That's
is
a
having
nice
all the fun.
idea. Or we can play even rook f7 instead of king g3. And we have to keep in mind that the king is still trapped. I mean, the rook cannot move from h8 because there would always be the checkmate on h7. So this seems like a winning position. So black has to be careful about such threat. So rook g1 may be actually a very strong move.
I really like this move from Vasif, and Sam has played relatively quick f2, perhaps calculating the variations. Rook, pawn f2 played, and now white has a potential for rook g6 check in the position. We should note that black will be threatening to queen with check, so maybe Vasif's mating ideas won't be so quick.
But we still can go rook g6 and rook f6
and rook
to
G6
trade
was
the
played.
rooks. So rook g6 happened. Now we are expecting king h5 because king h6 would be probably a big blunder,
Well,
allowing discovered attack.
We should note that Vasif does have repetition if he wants it. He can just repeat with rook g5, rook h6, or rook g6, and the king is just forced to move back and forth on the h file. So now it's a question: is Vasif playing for more in this position?
So if he makes a draw, he is securing his spot in the playoff. If he continues, he may play for a win to go for a clear first.
That's right. What are you rooting for, Katerina? Do you want to see a playoff, or do you want to see a clear champion?
Well, when I look at this position, I feel that after rook f6, white is keeping an advantage. So I don't see the reason to go for a draw.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. And a line like rook f6, rook take f6, pawn take f6, white's doing a very good job at kind of blocking the black king out of being able to attack the white pawn. Given that white is controlling these key squares, it's kind of like a wall that the black king can't really penetrate. And meanwhile, white has ideas of not only pawn f7, but also just king g2 and going after the f2 pawn.
So it does not look like white is risking anything with the rook trades, but maybe we can keep the rooks on board and try to do something something more dangerous to the king. I don't know. Is there anything else we can do besides rook g5 and rook f6?
Well, we see, we just saw Vasif. He reached out his hand. It looked like he touched his rook. Then he brought his hand back. Now he's doing this pose, now going back to the classic chess player thinking pose. Sam scratching his head as he walks away from the board. Vasif is perhaps realizing that he has time to use in this position. He wants to be extra sure on whatever move he plays that it's the right decision. Going back to the current position, I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe repeats once, plays rook g5, forces king h6, and then decides if he wants to play for more. But I think we can expect the eventual rook to f6.
That's a good idea, a good strategy to start with the pretending that we want to repeat the position just to say that we are the one who can have draw at any moment, and then we can deviate and play something else to see just opponent is the one who is actually worse in that position.
Oh, this video gives me anxiety. Like Vasif is reaching across the board, almost making a move, then pulling his hand back. When is he actually going to make a move? It seems like there's a lot of tension in the room, even though it's only game going. And now we see, is he actually going to make a move? He made a move, rook to f6.
So he is going for the rook trade, and he wants the somewhat endgame rook against, bishop against knight with some chances.
That's right, and both players pretty equal on time. Vasif about 20 minutes, Sam just over 21 minutes. And okay, Sam appears to have traded the rooks. Vasif recapturing on f6 brings us to the current position. Oh, Sam has already touched the queen. Do you see that? Sam just picked up the queen and brought it to his side.
So do you think he's going to promote? That's an idea to play f1 here. Let's try to play f1 to promote the queen, forcing the bishop to recapture it, and then having king g6. So let's take king g6, attacking the pawn on f6, and just taking it back. So it's a short-term sacrifice where we actually just recapture a pawn very quickly. But is it good? Now it's interesting to mention that we have a pawn on the h file, but which is promoting on dark square. So if the pawn on f6 is going to be taken and the pawn on a4 is going to be out, this is just a draw.
That's a very good point, and we might see this play out. I would like to just demonstrate a line. Let's say white activates the king g4, king take f6. Say white goes for the h-pawn push, and then all black needs to do, if I'm not mistaken, is sacrifice a knight for the pawn. And that shouldn't be too difficult. Perhaps a move like knight e6, going for knight c5. Let's say white plays some sort of waiting move like bishop to e2. The knight can attack the pawn. The knight can continue to attack the pawn. And then after a move like knight c5, this seems like a dead draw after knight take a6, bishop take a6. For those who don't know your general basic endgames, there's no way to win this position as white, given the queening square is on a dark square, and white only has the light squared bishop. So all black needs to do is just go to the corner and wait.
So it looks like we're gonna have a playoff.
Yeah, if the game's drawn, it's Vasif Durabeli against Rosen Jacobian. We can see Vasif thinking in this position, trying to see if there is any winning chances, but I don't see any, and I would be very surprised if he can muster up anything in this position.
So what if we review the playoff format that the players may play, because it's a very interesting way to decide who is going to be the winner in the tournament.
That's right. At this point, I think we can expect Vasif Durabeli against Rosen Jacobian. If there is a playoff, it will be a 2-game rapid match, 10 minutes per side with a 2-second delay. And if the match is tied 1-1, then it goes to Armageddon. And we recently saw Armageddon in the U.S. Women's Championship. Very exciting playoff between Nazi Pikadze and Annie Wang. The format for that game, white having extra time, 5 minutes plus 2-second increment, black having less time with 4 minutes plus 2-second increment, but having draw odds. So I'm sure that will be very exciting if we get to that, but there's still a long ways to go. And there is no guarantee for Armageddon if we see a a winner in the 2-game rapid match.
I'm curious, what do you think Vasif or VAR would pick as color for the Armageddon game? Because we know that Vasif is very aggressive. He would probably pick white, but I'm not sure what VAR would pick, because he can play strategically, try to hold on to the draw with black pieces. What are your suggestions?
No, I agree that Vasif would pick white, especially given VAR's opening repertoire. Vasif is an e4 player. VAR plays a lot of openings that are fun to attack against, like the French defense or the Pirates. You've even seen like some Caro-Cans from him. So I think if Vasif was white, or if Vasif could choose white, he would. I wouldn't be surprised if VAR would choose black, given that if we saw the game early in the tournament, VAR played Vasif with the white pieces, and VAR got no advantage against the Grunfeld. And VAR has told me multiple times it's so hard to get advantage against the Grunfeld. So I think both sides, Vasif would be happy with white, VAR would be happy with black.
So again, that's the perfect solution. Both players are happy with their choices and going to fight for the first place.
But at the end of the day, only one player will be happy, and we'll have to wait and see.
So let's go back to the game, see if something happened. I see King G6, so black is going for the F6 pawn. Vasif is just holding his hat. I'm not sure if he is.
I'm looking for tricks in this position. I was tempted to play something like H5. I'm realizing this doesn't work at all, because after a king take H5, F7, the knight can come back to E6. So sometimes in these positions you want to look for tricks, but the tricks which exist just don't seem to be doing anything. And I mean, black's plan just seems so simple.
So I look forward to talk to actually Vasif to see. I mean, we talked about the move Rook G2 that he played and take on H4, and going into this endgame, if he saw it, or maybe if he missed F1 and he didn't see this trade, how to get into this drawish position.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like Vasif was the one playing for something, and we did like this Rook G1 idea. I think the problem is Sam very easily was able to simplify. I am curious if Vasif realized this line was with Rook F6 was a draw, maybe he should have ended the game more quickly with the repetition. And save
some power for the playoff.
Yeah, because at this point, I mean, energy conservation is really important. To reiterate, it is just after 3:10 here in St. Louis. If there is a playoff, it starts at least half hour after this last game finishes. I think the latest it can start is 5 p.m. We'll have to get confirmation on that. Going forward in the position, there have been some moves played. Sam did capture the pawn in F6. Going back to after King G6, King G4 was played. And current position moves are coming out pretty quickly here. Sam opted for knight to F5. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, what happened?
Yeah, I see knight F5 being played and bishop A6.
Oh, bishop C4 was played, and then knight F5, and then bishop A6. So again, I mean, all black has to do is sacrifice a knight for the A pawn, but perhaps easier said than done.
I'm not sure if I just go. So the trick is, it's very interesting. So black has to make a move now, and King G6, for example, would be a big blunder because white has a trick here, a very nice resource. Bishop D3, pinning the knight and getting the knight for free. So King G6 is not a possible move. So what else black can do? Black can move the knight, maybe give a check on E3.
I would be very tempted to move the knight. Maybe just reposition it to a square like D5. Yeah, knight E3 check looks very logical. Make white's king move to a less active square. Should mention if king F4 is played, it would give black extra tempi to come closer to winning the pawn. So maybe a move like king F3, but it just seems like black should have no trouble drawing this position.
And we have a move. Sam decided to play knight D4, so he did not choose check, but he is repositioning the knight to a different square. I mean, knight D4, knight in the center, controlling many squares, it cannot be a bad choice.
Knight D4 and then king H5 played. Seems a bit unusual to put the king in front of the pawn, but maybe Vasif is trying to create a situation where he can slowly march up the king and the pawn. But then at some point, I feel like his king is just going to get stuck.
I mean, it's
on
a very
h-file.
nice idea. So he wants to prevent black for being able to capture with knight the pawn on a4 and getting the king to the center. So he wants to like make a body check, force the king to go away, secure the pawn on h-file, and maybe try for something. But it's unclear. It looks like the king is locked there, and black should be able to hold to a draw.
I have a question here. What if black goes for a completely different idea in the position and just sacrifices a knight for the h-pawn? And then just runs with the king, tries to win the a-pawn. Would that have any merit? Like a move maybe like knight f5? Just go after this pawn on h4, because black's king will be closer to the queen side.
So that's a nice idea.
For example,
so
king g4, knight take h4. Maybe it's a bit too risky. But it looks playable. I'm sure it would require calculation. It's probably not at all necessary. But it's just an idea in the position.
But the interesting idea is also if white wants to, let's say, play bishop b7 and push the pawn all the way to a6. I believe that's a draw when we get the king on b8 with black.
Actually, I think you're right. I would just like to show that position. Let's imagine, bishop to b7. Let's say the king walks in. Let's say pawn gets to a6. Black goes here. White's king gets back in. Playing a bunch of moves here, but this is a pretty well-known endgame, where even though the pawn is has the right queening square, there's no way for white to actually make progress in this position. Have you had an endgame like this before?
Yes, I had an endgame. That's why I remember that I was actually the one who had the bishop, so it was a little sad. I tried to move around to win the game, but it's just
So I do want to show there is one way for white to win this position. I've actually shown this exact endgame to a number of students, and it's a really funny way to win. And I actually witnessed this this way of winning happening in a tournament. It was like a high school tournament. Players were maybe below 1,600, but it's a really funny way for white to win. Let's imagine both sides are in time pressure. They just have to play some quick moves. Actually, king d6 is stalemate. Let's not stalemate the king. Let's say the bishop moves here, king here, check here. So the strategy for white is to get the bishop controlling this long diagonal and just make black's king move back and forth. And the game that I witnessed many years ago, white played very in a very clever manner. He just moved his bishop along this diagonal, making sure black was in the habit of moving back and forth with the king. And many more moves were played out. Both sides were just playing off delay in the game. And then at the right moment, white shifted the bishop to this diagonal, to f3. And black was so used to moving the king back and forth, he played the move king a8, and then out of nowhere, king c7 checkmate. And it's not an idea that you see so often, but it applies to this position. So even if you get this position, you have to be somewhat awake as a black player.
Yeah, that's a great example of like reminding ourselves how much awake we have to be throughout the whole game, because one move can decide the whole game. You can play very well, and then at the end, after 40 moves of playing around, you just miss this opportunity. You don't play king c8, you play a wrong move, king a8, and you get checkmated.
Yeah, and it's sad for the black player who had to suffer this, but that's why you constantly have to be aware of your opponent's play. You can never get so relaxed. In this situation, black just got relaxed moving back and forth, and then got severely punished for it. Let's go back to the game. Let's see if there's anything happening. A few more moves have been played. Bishop to d3, and then knight d6. Let's go back to earlier. I don't think this has been too eventful, just some dancing around with the minor pieces. And it's still a question, like, what is white doing here? I wouldn't be surprised if Sam maybe just goes for the c-pawn advance. I mean, the extra pawn doesn't, it maybe isn't too significant in the position, but perhaps Sam can use it as a nuisance for white to deal with.
And Vasif played king h5 again, trying to force the king to the corner. Sam responded pretty quickly with king g7.
King g7, yeah, solid move from Sam, making sure white's king can advance up the board. And I mean, meanwhile, what to do for white? Black is just waiting around.
White can try to play, let's say, king g5 here.
King g5. Looks like that's what was played. See Mike Hummer just photobombed there. Brief moment.
So Sam responded with knight b7.
You see how Sam moved the knight to b7. It was like so calm, just with a flick of the wrist.
I mean, he has a pretty nice idea. He really wants to go to c5,
Yeah.
attack the bishop, grab the pawn, even if it's a sacrifice on a4, then move just king h8 and offer draw.
Exactly, and okay, it seems like a forcing line now that both players playing incredibly quickly. Knight c5, bishop to c2, and now at any point, Sam can just take the pawn.
Take the pawn and offer a draw. I mean, Vasif would probably agree at this moment because there is nothing you can do. You have the wrong square on the last square
He
of
plays
the pawn.
a5, not taking the pawn. But h6 check played, forcing Black's king into the corner. Moves coming out very rapidly here. I think both players just know it's a draw. Just a matter of getting the job done. King to f6 played. Sam did not take the pawn again. Knight to d7. I mean, he can take the pawn whenever he wants.
But I'm curious, what is this psychological game happening here? I mean, just grab the pawn, offer draw, game over.
King f7 played. I mean, this is Sam's final game. It's going to end in a draw. Sam's going to be over with the tournament. But Vasif is going to have at least 2 more games of chess ahead of him. Very important games, too. Okay, we see Sam play knight c5, and then king g6. Just take the pawn. I mean,
Just do it.
again, he doesn't have to, but not sure. Not sure how this is going to end. Do you think he's going to take the pawn, or do you think he's going to just keep dancing around with
I
the
really
knight?
don't understand what's happening here. Sometimes when you see such a game, you think that maybe the player does not understand that he can take the pawn and make a draw, but I'm sure Sam does. So he maybe just doesn't want to give up the piece. He's saying like it's a draw anyway, and I'm not the weaker side here, so I'm not going to sacrifice anything.
Oh, exactly. I mean, why not? Why not keep the knight? I mean, if he can take the pawn anytime. I'm surprised neither player is offering a draw. I feel like if I were Vasif in this position, I mean, okay, it's going to be a draw. Just take the draw and then focus on the playoff. King f6 played.
Maybe
so
a
maybe we'll see
repetition is going to
repetition.
be here. King g6 back, king g8.
Yeah, maybe repetition is most likely. But we can see both these players, incredibly fighting players. They just they're fighting and fighting and fighting, and like the last thing they want to do is draw the game. It's going to happen at some point, though.
I like how Sam is now very focused, thinking. He has 24 minutes. I hope he's not going to spend 24 minutes on thinking on this move, though.
Oh, that would be terrible for everyone. But okay, maybe now he's considering taking the pawn. I'm not sure if there's any difference. Or he could just keep dancing with the knight. Vasif there drinking some tea, checking his watch.
Clock.
It is 3:21 p.m. St. Louis time. Sam taking a sip of water there. It seemed like he said something, but maybe not. Maybe he was just swallowing the water. Now we see the classic pose from Sam.
It is interesting to know that the playoff may start sooner than 5 p.m. if the players are both in the house here and agree to start sooner.
That is a good point, and I don't believe that we're going to be cutting out the broadcast. So everyone who's watching us so far can continue watching. We will have maybe an extended break at some point, but we will be checking the YouTube chat. So if you guys want to say hi to us, if you have questions for us, feel free. Make yourself heard in the YouTube chat. We see some viewers who are active here. Shout out to Cognito and Kane Thomas and Isaac Schrantz. A lot of fans here. Good to see you all. Anything happen? A few more moves have been played, but really no progress being made for either side.
So there's the progress. We do have a pawn on h7. It's almost close to promote, but the king is on h8, blocking it. So will the players decide to make a draw soon? Vasif looks like, okay, the game is over. Let's make a draw. But Sam is like, no, I want to think very hard now.
I mean, Sam does have a knight. Knights can be tricky. We've seen it before. But I mean, okay, what to do? Knight if he doesn't want to take the pawn, I guess he could move. He could play some move like knight e6.
I hope he's gonna just take the pawn. Just take the pawn, play c5, push the pawns, get all the pawns captured. It's a stalemate afterwards. Maybe we can show that line. That looks like it's something
I
interesting.
take the pawn, yeah, and then black just give up the rest of the pawns. And then as a white, you can play the very simple bishop a2. Force the stalemate one move earlier.
And even
save the extra ounce of
even if
energy.
the players would like to continue, the arbiter would come here and say, okay guys, it's a draw, you can actually play more.
I'm sure they would love to play a lot more.
And here it is, he is taking the pawn.
Hey, he
Good
took
job.
the pawn. So maybe we'll see the stalemate play out. I know in these situations, I usually play it out. I mean, why not? Just to show the viewers Vasif playing incredibly enthusiastically there. Is he going to play bishop a2 or is he going to play bishop a3? Or bishop to b3? Bishop a2.
Oh, good job.
And they shake hands. Mike Hummer there collecting the score sheets. Kudos to Mike Hummer. I don't think there's been any issues or any controversies this event. Mike Hummer, I believe he's the chief arbiter for this event. And there's going to be more work for Mike to do later on with a playoff looming. So it's going to be Vasif Darabaly against Firouzja Nakovian. Who's your pick to win the event?
That's a very hard question. I mean, these players, they know each other very well. We have to know that Vasif Darabaly, he's studying at Webster University here in St. Louis. Var Akobian, he lives here in St. Louis. So they probably met on various occasions. I feel like, I don't know, I don't want to pick yet. I don't know. I want to see how the first game is going, who is going to actually have white. I think the player that may start with white pieces can have an advantage because you start pushing, and I think psychologically that can be good for the white player.
Mm-hmm. We see Vasif and Sam perhaps discussing the game. I'm sure there are many moments in that game which they want to go back and check with the engine, given that it seemed like black should have been better earlier, but didn't have the breakthrough. Then it seemed like Vasif was better towards the end game, but didn't have any clear way of converting the advantage.
So the last round of Tournament A is over. Let's review the results.
Yeah, we had some a series of results today. I'm not sure if we have a graphic for it. We do have standings for today. In Group A, we see Firouzja Nakovian, Vasif Darabaly tied for first place. Sam Sevian just missing the tie, finishing in clear third place. Still a very good result for Sam.
Very nice tournament. So let's see now the results of Group B.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, Camille Dragon finishing in clear first in Group B. Congratulations, Camille. Well-played tournament. If we take a look at what happened today, there were two decisive games, both Vladimir Balas defeating Sadua Kasova and Alejandro Ramirez defeating a good friend, Tatev Abrahamian. I feel bad for Tatev losing to a friend. It's not maybe the most pleasant way to finish an event.
And I just see that only the two female players lost in this round for Group B. That's definitely not something I'm happy to see, but what can we do? I mean, chess is a hard game. So let's see what are the standings for Group B. We do not have a playoff here. Kamil Dragon, the Polish Grandmaster, is the winner of Group B, followed by Andrzej Stukopin, and we have a tie for the third place, where JJ Alimarandi and Robert Agasarian both have 5 points.
Yeah, it's, I mean, lots of money will be taken home this event, and it was great to see so many exciting games of chess, and we're going to stick around even longer for at least 2 more games, a rapid playoff. I've been saying since the beginning of this tournament that we're always looking forward to the playoff, and now it's finally happening.
It's going to be very exciting to see how players are handling this situation. But we do want to know that the Grand Chess Tour is also about to start next month in Belgium, in Leuven, followed by a tournament in Paris.
That's right. And then, of course, in August, we have 2 amazing events coming to St. Louis. From August 9th to 16th, we have the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. Incredibly exciting event, and it's amazing for spectators to come here in person. So many Super Grandmasters. Last year, Kasparov came out of retirement to play the event. Not sure if he's coming back this year, probably not, but it's still going to be some very high-quality rapid and speed chess.
And following this event, we have the 6th annual Sinkfield Cup, the part of Grand Chess Tour. It's the only tournament that has classical chess. The players, it's not yet confirmed who is going to participate. We can make only predictions, but it's always a very strong tournament. It's great to watch. Yasser, Jen, and Maurice will be back for this. Another exciting event to watch or be present here.
That's right, and be sure to follow all the action on grandchesstour.org. I think right now we're going to take an extended break and be back with the playoff. We'll be back in 30 minutes or less, so stay tuned.
A moment comes in chess when you need to test yourself at a different level. Chess 24 Premium offers the tools that you need to reach your maximum potential. From hundreds of interactive video lessons to becoming part of the Chess 24 community. You can analyze with friends or coach your students live. You get 24/7 coverage of chess news and events, access to premium analysis and commentary, and the chance to interact with grandmasters and other top players and coaches. Get advice from the best and even challenge them to a battle. Be the best chess player you can be. It's time to level up your game with Chess 24 Premium membership.
This is a crucial situation in this game. Matheny must make a move, but what will it be? All eyes are on Matheny.
Could make a move a lot easier if you weren't doing that right next to me.
It doesn't bother me. Check.
The St. Louis Chess Club, celebrating 10 years of promoting, teaching, and playing the game of chess. Visit the St. Louis Chess Club and help celebrate our 10th anniversary.
There's a weekend vacation, a one-tank trip in a nearby city you won't want to skip. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton. There's museums full of art and super fun slides. Upside-down concretes, twisty, turny rides. Houses full of magic, some with butterflies. Gardens growing flowers, parks with giant eyes. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton.
Question on Twitter from Damas. I should not have pronounced that. That was a bit of a trap, yeah?
For those of you who are new to chess, it might look like ba3 is an illegal move here because white advances pawn 2 squares, not 1. But it's a little something we call en passant. And you can do that, but you have to do it instantly. You can't wait for a move, like let's say play king e7, king g2, and now try, because could I do it?
I'm sorry. This is too funny for words.
This is a software glitch? I'm pretty sure there's not a lot.
Lawrence. Hello, Lawrence. Yeah, I'll play 4 against Lawrence. And now he's going to play something against me which we discussed at length during the course of my stay. Yeah, he told me this is excellent. d5, this was what I was kind of hoping for, because now I think e5 is quite strong. No, Lawrence, this is not how chess works. Sadly, it would be much, much more fun if chess actually worked like this. But I don't think it does. Or maybe it does. Well, that's me regretting what I just said. How did I get from there to here is a little bit beyond me. And what's worse, I will never hear the end of it. My quality of life has just gone downhill tremendously because I'm actually sharing the office with the guy.
This August, the best chess players in the world are coming to St. Louis for the Grand Chess Tour. The St. Louis Rapid and Blitz and Sinkfield Cup tournaments will feature the world's best right here in St. Louis. St. Louis Chess Club is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and these tournaments will be a highlight you won't want to miss. For tickets and more information, go to stlouischessclub.org.
chess tournaments in the world.
Be surprised. Be intrigued. Be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
Hello everyone, welcome back. We are having playoff for the Group A. Vasif Dorabeli is playing Varakobian. They drew lots. What happened, Eric?
That's right. It looks like Vasif has the black pieces against VAR in the first game. Now, we should keep in mind this is a 2-game rapid playoff, and if they're tied 1-1 after the first game, it comes down to Armageddon.
So let's see, they have 2 rounds to play, both 10 minutes. VAR is having white for the first round. I thought that may be an advantage.
Yeah, we should also note VAR has kind of the advantage when it comes to just physical energy. He had a very quick draw in the last round today. And I mean, Vasif had a very long game against Samsevian. So let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff format just to clarify what's taking place. There is a 2-game rapid match, both sides having 10 minutes with a 2-second delay. And if the match is tied, it's Armageddon, with white having extra time, 5 minutes plus a 2-second increment, black having 4 minutes with the increment, and draw odds. So I'm sure we'll be looking forward to Armageddon if it gets to that stage.
So the game is starting in 5 seconds, so let's take a look. The players are ready, shaking hands, and VAR is about to start.
Looks like VAR making sure the clock was actually started there, and some moves being played very quickly. Looks like we're going to see a Grunfeld. We saw a Grunfeld being played in many games this tournament, with VAR having the white side and Vasif playing many Grunfelds as black.
And we do have it. I see d5 there, Grunfeld is happening, and now VAR is thinking what to do. He's capturing on d5, so he may go for the main line. Here it is, knight takes c3, pawn takes c3.
Yeah, moves coming in very rapidly. It's a bit hard to keep up, but looks like we have the main line position. VAR paused for a moment, played knight to f3, and now pawn c5. Still in theoretical waters after bishop to e3, queen a5, queen d2. Neither of us are Grunfeld experts, so I can't give too much commentary on this line, but I'm pretty sure just based on the speed the players are playing. Let me just double-click to update here.
I did play Grunfeld about 3 times in a classical game, but then I decided to drop the opening. It was a little too passive for me, but I was looking at, they're still in theory, of course, castle.
Yeah, the online board is having a hard time catching up to the physical board. So many moves being played. I think finally there's a pause. VAR just playing king e2, bishop d7.
I mean, Vasif is playing logical moves, bishop d7 now, connecting the rooks, maybe now rook d8 following development. So VAR is launching an attack, h4. Maybe he wants to play h5 and break on the king side.
Seems like a very positional battle. I'm sure both VAR and Vasif were expecting some kind of line like this. Vasif still playing very quickly, rook f to c8. We should note the c file is the only open file on board, so both players probably want to think about doubling up. But we do see some space advantage for white in this position. I mean, these pawns on e5 and d4 seem a bit menacing, and it leaves black's bishop on g7 a bit out of play in the position.
And we also talked about the bishop being on the same color, and bishop on d7 is just staring at its own pawn on e6. The good part for black is that black has advantage on the queen side with the pawn on b7 and a6, but many moves are coming. So knight g5.
So knight g5, VAR going
d8.
after this potential target on e6, attacked by both the knight and the bishop. And Vasif was forced to retreat knight d8, not the most aesthetically pleasing move. And then VAR retreated the bishop to b3, perhaps increasing some tension along the c-file.
But maybe that's the reason why Vasif chose rook f to c8. So I have this knight d8 while the rooks are still connected. So, I mean, it looks passive, but black can just trade the rooks and try to maybe move the pawns on the queen side.
That's a good point. Whenever there's only one open file in the position, you want your rooks to be connected so you can fight for that one open file. After bishop b3, it's Vasif's move, and now it's the first moment where he's actually taking time to figure out what's going on. Perhaps he's out of his opening preparation and needs to come up with his own plans. One move that pops out right away is just a simple h6. Just kick the knight away and relieve the pressure on e6.
And h6 just happened.
That was played, and VAR very quickly retreats the knight to h3, looking to go to f4 to keep the pressure.
So now another move that makes sense is either to improve the knight, improve the king, or maybe trade the rooks.
Yeah, maybe some options for Vasif. Vasif would really like to expand further with g5, but that currently is off limits. He decided to trade on c1, perhaps just going for a simplification, and now after rook c8, we could see all the rooks come off the board.
And when the rooks are off, they are the light pieces and they are well placed, they are doing okay. Are we predicting a draw here?
I mean, I'm sure Vasif would be very happy with drawing the first rapid game. That would give him white in the second game and everything to play for. Yeah, it's possible that that if the rooks do get traded, it is maybe a bit easier to draw. But I still feel like white has a push in the position with its knight coming to f4.
So maybe white can take on c8. Let's just see. Rook takes c8.
Now
and
was
actually
played.
it
Bishop
happened.
takes c8.
And now white can go with knight f4, maybe to make a transfer with the knight to knight d3 and knight c5.
Yeah, lots of potential for the knight. He chose a completely different plan, playing pawn f4. Maybe somewhat unexpected, but perhaps enabling the maneuver knight f2 to d3, where the knight does have some long-term potential, especially if it can get to c5. It could put a lot of pressure against black's pawn structure.
And also the f4 pawn is defending the pawn on e5, so we have the future with pushing the d5 pawn and maybe allowing the light square bishop to control more squares on the board.
I do have to say, I'm not impressed with black's pieces. Look at all of black's minor pieces. Both bishops being pretty sad in the position, not doing anything to help black out, and this knight on d8 incredibly passive. So Vasif seems like he has some untangling to do. He just started with the move bishop to f8. Seems like the only reasonable diagonal for the bishop. So now at least it's not staring at white's very well-supported pawn chain in the center.
And another idea that black can do here is to play bishop d7, bishop c6, and get the bishop on the diagonal, attacking the pawn g2. And I see it just happened.
That's what was played, yeah. Bishop to d7. Some logical moves from Vasif, just looking to improve the bishops. And looks like Var lunged forward with the move pawn d5, not giving Vasif any time to have this bishop c6 move. And it looks like he's going for some exchange of the pawns, where if the e-pawn gets traded, see they do capture on d5, and then bishop e6. White is now left with a very well-defended passed pawn on e5. And this could lead to some potential king-pawn endings if we imagine all the minor pieces get traded, where white would be the one probably playing for the win with just a better pawn structure.
But black has also chances to push kind of on with the g5 and break the pawns there and maybe weaken the pawn on e5. And we cannot forget that black has that advantage on the queen side with pawn on b7 and a6, and the pawn can start marching.
Yeah, we should not forget about the queenside majority for black. It doesn't look too scary at this point, but it is a long-term plan if black can perhaps reorganize the pieces, get some better coordination. These pawns do outmatch the lone pawn on e2. So.
It's interesting to see that Var is thinking in this position, because if you move the bishop away from the diagonal g8, a2, the pawn on a2 will be just captured. So Var has two options. He can take on e6 and exchange the bishops, or move back to b3. And apparently he may like the move bishop b3 to maybe move the pawn toward the center from a2 to b3 after the exchange.
That is a good point. Two options for Var, and whenever you have more than one option, it is maybe a decision moment where you have to figure out what gives you the best chances. I think he's hesitant to capture the bishop on e6 because it just gives black time to improve the knight, where the knight would be very stable, a great blockader, and putting constant pressure on white in this position. But something very similar could happen if he does choose bishop to b3. The bishops could get traded. The knight's still coming to e6. So I do like the way Vasif is kind of untangling here. Perhaps going for the trade, making it so after a trade of minor pieces occurs, the minor pieces that he has left will actually be effective in the position.
Yeah, that's something you want to do if you don't have enough space. You want to trade and get some space for the pieces. Now I see the trade happened. Bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, and Var just responded with g3.
G3, stabilizing move, making sure pretty much everything on the king side is defended. But now it's a question, which player is playing for the advantage here? It seems relatively equal. We haven't pointed this out, but we do have an endgame bishops of the same color. And look at white's kingside pawns, all of them fixed on dark squares for the time being. So this could potentially favor black in the long term if any pawns become weak for white.
And black played king f7. I like that move because it's time maybe to bring the king to the center, bring the king to the game, and then decide whether we play bishop e7 and g5 to crush there or start marching with the pawns on the queen side.
Oh, of course, I tell my younger students that when you reach an endgame, your king wants to be an active player. You don't always want to keep your king super safe, especially in the endgame where you can use it as a tool. So both players bringing their kings closer to the center. We just see king d3 being played, and now bishop to b4 by Vasif. What to do next for Varkobian?
So what can Var do?
I mean, I might expect some idea like king to c4, but with this last move bishop to b4, it seems like Vasif is pondering the potential bishop e1 in the position, attacking from the rear. And this might be a bit unpleasant for the white side to meet.
And also it's interesting that even if you reach king c4, it's very hard to see how white king can get near the black pawns because the bishop and the knight, the black pieces, they are cooperating well and creating like a wall.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's any entry point currently for the white king, but sometimes it's just about optimizing the position of the king and then using the minor pieces to work together. So I'm sure Rosen wouldn't be too disappointed if he could get his king to d5 and then perhaps try and improve the knight and bishop even further.
I wonder if white can play g4. I mean, I don't like to make the weakness on h4, but I do need to progress. I need to advance the pawn somewhere to improve my position. So what if I play g4 here?
Yeah, g4, it seems weakening. I think he doesn't want to play it if it's not necessary. We do have a move played, bishop to d2.
Mm-hmm.
And then very quickly from Vasif, knight c5 check. Putting the question to the white king. The king is currently tied down to the bishop on d2. So there aren't too many options here.
And suddenly, I mean, black can maybe trade the bishops afterward and advance the king to e6, d5. Although it's not necessary. I mean, my black bishop is active and I can just move it to a3. But it can be an idea because every time we can control the center with the king, it's good for the side that can have the king in the center.
I do like that plan. Let's imagine some move like king c2, trade of bishops on d2, king e6, black's king is guaranteed to come to d5, where white's king would be a bit restricted, and then maybe black can start thinking about the queenside advance. And maybe Vasif has some chances here if he can get the more active king and get his queenside pawns rolling, while white appears to have a hard time making progress on the king side.
And it looks like the variation is happening. They traded bishop, Vasif played immediately king e6, and I feel even if we just look at the clock, we see Var having only 2.5 minutes, Vasif having 7 minutes. I mean, this tells you something about what's happening on the board. White is probably not pleased with his position and he tries to think hard to find the best variation.
Yeah, Var can't be too comfortable here. Huge time advantage for Vasif. This is a 10-minute game, and I know it's hard to transition from playing classical games to playing a rapid game where you're so used to taking a lot of time to kind of sort through your decisions, and now you just have to play on pure instinct. Some more moves coming at a pretty rapid pace after king e3, king to d5, and I have to imagine maybe with perfect play, white can hold on, but it just seems a lot more pleasant for Vasif given the time advantage, and given that he has a very clear plan, just advance the queenside pawns, and then white might be the one under pressure.
White would like to exchange the knights here, possibly to play something like knight d3. But let's say if knight d3 happened, just to show the variation.
Well, we do have a move, knight d3.
And then black goes knight e4, and actually attacking and improving his knight. So Var did not go for this variation, and Var played g4.
G4, using the move, or using your idea from previously, trying to maybe create some more progress on the king side. I do like this move because now it's a question for black what to do with the pawn tension. If the pawns get traded on g4, the knight can come into play. And then there's some annoying knight moves, ideas like knight f6, So I see Vasif did not take on g4, he went for h5.
And h5 is an interesting move. You just want to block it and make sure that maybe there can be a Zugzwang where white has to make a move, and this helps me to either improve my knight or improve my king.
You know what move I would be considering here? It looks a bit ugly, but I would love to get the knight attacking the pawn in h5. I'm pondering the potential knight h1,
but then
maybe that's just bad because
e4.
knight e4 and then the knight on h1 is completely dominated. So, okay, knight d3 was played, allowing the potential for a king-pawn ending. Now it's a question, does Vasif avoid the trade of knights, or should he go for the trade? He should probably avoid it.
Yeah, if he trades the knight, we have to keep in mind that the pawn on e5 is defended, it's a passed pawn, it's very strong, and black would have to keep his king near the pawn, and that would not allow him to win the game.
So knight e6 was played, seems like a very reasonable move. Such a great blockader on e6, making sure white can't make further progress on the king side. And meanwhile, I mean, Vasif can keep in mind ideas like knight f8 and knight g6, where both of white's pawns need some defenders in the position, because they're both potential weaknesses.
I'm a little surprised to see knight e6. I expected knight e4 immediately to place the knight in the center, but knight e6 has a very nice idea, as you mentioned, to go to f8 and g6 and attack the pawns.
Right, and we should also keep in mind black still has the same idea. I mean, the pawns haven't moved much on the queen side yet, but I guarantee you at some point Vasif is going to start advancing these queen side pawns. And Var should be the one under pressure. We have one more move played, knight to f2.
So we can have a repetition here. If Vasif goes knight c5, and Var decides to go back, but Vasif
appears to be
his
playing
pawns.
for the win. Pawn b5. I told you these pawns are going to get rolling very soon.
I mean, absolutely. White is the one who is not having a pleasant situation. Only 1 minute left on clock. There's no reason for black to go for repetition.
Well, we just saw knight h1. Moves are coming very rapidly. Let me try and catch up here. b4, knight g3, knight g7.
So Var did go for your idea with knight h1 and knight g3 to attack the pawns. But Vasif is probably happy that his pawns on the queen side are advanced, and the knight on g3, it is attacking the pawns, but the black knight is defending them, so it's okay.
Yeah, and after a5, Var is again under pressure. I like the square that Vasif found for the knight on g7, making sure the pawns are defended and white isn't getting any counterplay. And meanwhile, okay, the plan is very simple for black, just keep pushing pawns. And we might see a situation where white's king will have to retreat, and maybe black's king can penetrate the position.
So
Var only has about 20 seconds to make his next move.
So Var is retreating with his
F1.
knight f1, maybe trying to go to e3 and attack the king and the pawn on f5. Vasif has 5 minutes. He has a lot of time to think what to do in this situation. So do we expect a4?
a4 just played, and we have to keep in mind that there's only a 2-second delay, which is not much time at all for Var to deal with in this position. Knight g3 back, and it seems like
playing with delay is very difficult because you really don't get extra time. The time is only running off. I remember playing in a game like this. It's just so stressful because you never get a break. You can make extra move to gain time.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I hate playing in these situations when you're only 2-second delay. That's not much time at all, and especially being used to the 30-second increment, it's a completely different scenario. But it's still a question: how is Vasif breaking through here? Var has 17 seconds, so maybe Vasif just wants to put the pressure on Var, find some moves to force Var to make some decisions.
Because let's say Vasif plays king c5. Var can go for something like e6, just forcing the knight to capture the pawn on e6 and then capturing the pawn on h5.
This is exactly what Var wants, just some simplification in the position. And just try and hold on for dear life, draw this game, move on to next game. Vasif still thinking here, time just falling below 4 minutes. But what other move to play other than king c5? It seems like black might be running out of options here.
I think about a very nice idea of playing a3 with black. And let's say you play knight h1, the worst move in the position. I have a nice try with b3.
This is a classic breakthrough idea.
Absolutely. And now if white takes the pawn, the black pawn is going to a2 and just promoting into a queen.
So I'm sure maybe Vasif, considering this potential idea with a3, it actually makes some sense in the position. It's just a matter, okay, white probably won't play knight h1 there. Maybe white would play a move like king 2 c2, and it's hard to calculate all the lines under time pressure, but we're seeing this line being played out. a3, king c2, king c4. We might just have to look on the board to see what's going on. We do see Var went for this line with e6, and after knight take e6, knight take h5, it's Vasif's move. Knight d4 being played. Now it's a question, can black actually crash through on the queen side? b3, it looks like he's going
and
for
I
some
believe there
sort of
is a
break.
checkmate, because if he takes the pawn, king takes, there are some checkmate
Yeah,
threats.
white does not want the king to come into b3. But meanwhile, how do you make progress as black in this position? Can you play something like b2,
Yeah,
which he did play?
And now trying to transfer the knight to c3 to check the king and promote. I mean, knight b5.
This is
and
beautiful play by black. But is there a breakthrough? Can I mean, knight b5 can be met with knight e2?
So what do we start with king d3? Now that's a pawn race. So king d3, h6.
And then knight b5.
Knight b5.
And Vasif
Game
has about 2.5 minutes on the clock. Var is down to 7 seconds. So Vasif does have enough time to calculate this position, but he doesn't want to take any risks.
But in my perspective, king d3.
Yeah, what to do after king d3 though?
Maybe we can see it on board now. If you
let's get
refresh
to
it.
the current position. Oh, he plays knight b5 immediately, forcing knight e2, and now king d3.
So
Similar idea, but it looks just about over after knight b5, knight e2, king d3. It seems like white's just lost. Var goes for the handshake.
And we see handshake. So Vasif wins the first game with black pieces. I mean, he pushed a nice endgame.
Oh, that was an incredible play from Vasif. He played quickly enough to stay up on time, really put the pressure on Var. It's not easy to win these games with the black pieces, especially given the resulting middle game position. It seemed like white was the one playing for a win, but perhaps Var overpushed, maybe underestimated Vasif's resources. And now it's a question, can Var come back with the black pieces?
And sometimes the interesting part for black is you are black, you just want to trade pieces, get into a draw, and sometimes that's a good strategy because you don't think about win, and it's white who has the pressure to try to figure out the best moves in the positions.
That's right, and I'm being told the next round starts at 4:30 Central Time, so we have 9 minutes until the next round. Maybe both players can cool down after the pretty intense time scramble there, and try and regroup. And especially for Var, he needs to play for a win with the black pieces. Not an easy task.
So we can just get the graphics to see we have two players playing playoff. The first round, Vasif Durabaili won against Var Akobian, and the second round, Vasif's going to be white.
That's right, and Vasif, all he needs to do is draw. I know he's an e4 player, so maybe we can expect some maybe quiet e4 opening. And now it's a question, what does Akobian choose against e4? I don't think he's a Sicilian player. I know he's played the French, but if he plays the French, that could just walk into the exchange variation. So any opening predictions for Var?
I'm just curious to see if we're going to see Vasif as we know him, aggressive, attacking, or if that's going to be a solid one who is trying just to keep the draw and just finish it off in the second round.
That's actually a really good point. I think if you're in Vasif's situation, why not just play your style, do what you've been doing, don't change anything too drastically. Even though a draw does clinch the title and the money, he should probably go for his style. If Var plays something maybe like a modern or a Piritz, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays some aggressive line, just going for another win.
Yeah, so we have exciting game, and Var has to push for win. I mean, he's losing 0-1, and he has to make a win in order to go to the Armageddon. So maybe we can review the playoff format.
Yeah, we can take a look at the playoff format. We do have one rapid game finished, which means if Vasif wins or draws the next rapid game, tournament is over. Vasif will be the winner of Group A. If Var does manage to win with the black pieces, it will go to Armageddon, and then anything can happen from there.
And based on this game, I think Vasiliev would be okay taking black. I mean, he has time. He never had problems with time, and there were chances for draw. So you want to make sure you are black if there are chances for draw.
Absolutely. But we're going to take a very quick break, and we'll be back with the second rapid game in Group A. So stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here in the studio. We are having the second round of the playoff. VAR is starting the game soon, and he has to push for a win.
That's right. Not easy psychological situation to be in, having the black pieces. And he's faced probably the hottest player of the tournament, Vasif Darbeli, who's played an amazing event, winning so many games. Maybe had a slow finish, but Vasif played excellent chess in the first rapid game, as we saw, winning with the black pieces. So now Vasif is white. I'm sure the game is going to be started any second now.
I mean, we can expect a very fighting game, or we can expect a very boring opening from Vasif. What do you think is going to happen?
I mean, I think VAR is going to be the one who needs to steer the game into more exciting waters. I was just looking up his opening stats on chessgames.com, and I'm expecting a perk. Let's see what happens. D6 maybe, or G6?
So Vasif is starting with E4. No
Oh, he's
D4,
thinking.
no Nemcova, and now it's VAR's
Very
time to
strange.
decide.
The fact that he's thinking, maybe didn't decide before
French.
the first move.
We have French here.
Will we see an exchange variation?
Oh, wow. So we will see a
Wow.
boring opening.
How do you play for a win in the French exchange with the black side? Not going to be an easy task.
I was actually looking at some of the variations where black can try to play with long side castle and try to push for a win, but I mean, this is a situation you don't want to have when you are black. I'm kind of surprised that VAR went for this variation.
I'm very surprised too, but we'll have to see if he has any ideas in mind. I do like the fact Vasif not going for any really sharp French lines, given VAR is well prepared in those. And the current position, bishop d3, c5, okay, the first maybe imbalancing move, maybe trying to go for some isolate queen's pawn position where black might have more activity. This is probably the way to play if black wants to go for any sort of dynamic play in the position.
Absolutely, getting an isolated pawn and trying to play for some attack with the bishops having squares to go to. What is Vasif going to do? Is he going to take, or probably he's going to play something like c3? Just to make sure we don't open it too much.
Option. I mean, c3 aims to keep the symmetry. If c3 is played, the pawns get traded. Still a very symmetrical position, hard for black to push for much. I mean, I wouldn't mind here as white, maybe just going for the trade on c5. I like playing against the IQP, and a position like this where white has already some very nice development among the bishops seems like this wouldn't necessarily be a bad option for white.
It looks like Vasif is thinking hard, and I don't remember thinking him too hard during the first game, and so this is a tough situation for him. He's thinking, do I go for an open position, or do I just block it with c3?
That's right. Bit surprised he's taking so much time here, but I mean, maybe the first moment where he's out of his opening preparation. I'm sure he doesn't play the exchange French too often with the white pieces. Maybe this is his first time playing the exchange French, so he's probably not familiar with this exact position. He does go for c3, probably just the most solid move in the position. VAR quickly responds with knight c6. I think from VAR's perspective, he wants to put the pressure on early, try and make Vasif think, because if you can't win in the position, maybe you can get your opponent low on time and then try and provoke some blunder later on.
And we have a very logical move, knight f3. White just wants to develop the knight's castle.
A very harmonious development for white. I mean, this is a setup I would love to show my students. Just all of white's pieces coming to life in a very harmonious manner. And I mean, okay, VAR responds, bishop to g4.
Putting some pressure on the knight, maybe trying to later take on d4 and put even more pressure on the pinned piece. But what is gonna white do? Maybe bishop e2, castle.
Yeah, it's a question, can white actually get away with leaving the d4 pawn hanging? I mean, the move you would like to play here as white is just to simply castle. And it's a question after pawn take on d4, can white actually play pawn take d4, or maybe a move like queen e1 check and then go for knight take d4.
I think Vasif's style is just to take on d4 and even sacrifice the pawn, because the black king still has not castled. So we see Vasif is going for the castle and even for the sacrifice, but VAR is not taking the pawn because it can be a very poison pawn to go for. Instead, he's developing the bishop and going for castle just to make sure the king is safe and trying to maybe capture the pawn later.
Yeah, I am curious what the exact reason was for not capturing the pawn on d4. Maybe it would be something like queen a4 check, knight c6, rook e1, where white is getting a lot of active play very quickly.
Following with knight e5, I mean,
Knight
those
e5
pieces are
coming.
amazing.
Yeah, so probably a good decision by VAR not to capture on d4, but rather complete development. After bishop e7, it was Vasif's move. He played knight b d2. Brings us to the current position, which seems very solid for white, and that's what Vasif wants in this game.
And now maybe VAR is thinking, maybe now I can take on d4, because at least the rook with e1, it's not a check, because the bishop is there on e7. Because if black does not take the pawn right now, and let's say decides to castle, white can go h3, attack the bishop, so let's say castle, h3, we are attacking the bishop, and suddenly white is maybe not having the best situation, because I can move my queen away from the pin at any moment, and white is very happy with the setup.
I actually like what VAR has, or what Vasif has done psychologically here. He's put VAR in a situation where now VAR needs to decide, it's a critical moment, do you take the pawn and maybe go for some very risky position, or play it safe and castle? He does go for castling. He took about a minute on that move. Vasif played h3 very quickly, and bishop h5 played. So now it's a line that we just saw that you were mentioning. Probably we can expect a move here like queen b3.
Queen b3 or queen a4, I'm not sure where I want to put the queen, but definitely out of the pin, just connecting the rooks and threatening something like knight e5. I mean, the knight to go to a perfect center, then connect the rooks, put them on file. I don't see any issue for white here.
I mean, this seems like exactly the position Vasif is happy with. Symmetrical structure with like a small edge for white, given more activity, especially with the queen on b3, putting constant pressure on the pawns on d5 and b7. Also, knight e5, potential idea later on in the position. We see knight a5 played. Interesting move by VAR, hitting the queen, defending the b7 pawn. Now it's a question, where does white move the queen?
Probably queen a4.
We've seen Vasif do this many times. He reaches out his hand, hovering over the board, then goes back to the thinking pose. Maybe wants to take some more time here, but maybe not. Queen a4 was played. And a6 played very quickly by VAR. So this reminds me of some of these exchange swap positions where the structure is so symmetrical, and this is a very typical idea from black to go for this queenside expansion. I'm sure VAR wants to play pawn b5, get the knight to c4, and maybe there's something to play for. Maybe these queen moves by Vasif aren't achieving too much. I see one more move has been played, rook ac1. Normal looking move, putting the rook on the very open c file. And I wouldn't be surprised if VAR goes for this b5 expansion here.
I feel like you start with a6, that's the first step, you have to follow up with the second step. And the knight on c4 is very strong, really. You mentioned it's attacking the knight, it's attacking the pawn, it's getting some activity over the squares. And then I can even finish development with rook ac8. I think VAR has to go with b5.
But he is taking some time here, so maybe there's something that he's not entirely comfortable with in the position. If we speculate and say black plays b5, I would expect white's queen to perhaps drop back to c2. And then if we imagine knight c4, maybe Vasif is just fine, just ignoring the knight on c4 and going for play of his own with a move like knight e5.
That's definitely a possibility. Now probably black would play with rook c8, just finishing the development.
And we see maybe somewhat more exciting position compared to what we had in the opening, just this exchange French, where the position does eventually become a bit more imbalanced. Some very quick moves played there. After b5, queen c2 played instantly, and then knight c4 played instantly. So we do have this current position, and knight e5 played. So I was predicting the future there a little bit.
So now we need VAR to play rook c8 to finish our variation. But we do have to know that Vasif is okay with drawing this game. That's enough for him to win the playoff. So VAR has to create some complications and try to get an advantage, try to trick Vasif into a bad variations where he can maybe get advantage. So queen b6, no rook c8.
b6, pressuring the d4 pawn, and instantly played knight df3, reinforcing the pawn in d4. I like this move a lot because not only does it reinforce the pawn, but it maybe prepares a very simple pawn b3, chasing away the knight from c4. We have one more move played, rook a to c8. pressuring the queen along the c-file. Perhaps we could expect something like queen e2 or queen b1 in this position. Queen b1 was played.
I mean, this is a position that you want to have with white. You have no issues, you have active pieces, you have even some threats on h7. I mean, there is the battery that's very strong, and you can draw this position. Drawing is fine for you. So I think it's a very pleasant situation for Vasif.
Exactly, but we have to keep in mind there's a lot of tension in the position. All the minor pieces still on the board, even though the pawn structure is relatively symmetrical. There could be some complications happening. Bishop d6 followed by bishop f5. Looks like Vasif is trying to optimize his position. Trying to make out. Oh, bishop take f3 was played. Wow, going for the counterattack, ignoring the rook on c8. Things are about to get very tactical.
I mean, that's something you need to do as black. You want to complicate stuff, but I mean, is that enough? I'm just taking a rook. What's happening?
Bishop e4, a very nice move by Var, hitting the queen on b1. Vasif leaning back and shaking his head. He can't be happy. It looks like he just missed the simple shot, bishop e4. And now the queen is forced to a1. I'm expecting Var to recapture, but maybe it's not so simple. If Var takes the bishop on c8, there is b3 present in the position.
Maybe just Vasif was tricking and showing that he missed the bishop e7, but actually he's doing very fine after b3.
Sometimes you can't trust your opponent's reactions. We saw the leaning back and headshake usually means that you're in trouble, but maybe it means that he can't believe that this variation is actually working for him. Var is now thinking, because rook takes c8 just runs into the simple pawn b3. Black would love to retreat the knight to d6 or b6, but both of those squares off limits. And is Vasif going to be the one up material?
Interesting variation is here queen takes d4, but this did not happen. Black just took, rook takes c8.
And now knight h5 played very quickly by Var. The variation continues. These are the types of positions which just make my head hurt. So many things like hanging and being attacked and so many trades. The current material situation, Black does have, if I'm counting correctly, 2 minor pieces for a rook. And it's just a question, can White win back some material along the c-file? This bishop on f4 currently hanging.
And White can go for some trades, like knight takes c4, pawn takes c4.
Knight takes c4, which pawn takes c4? B pawn?
Let's say b take, bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, to have exchange up. But now let's look at the king.
Well, actually, it's not exchange up. There's 2 minor pieces for a rook in this case.
Oh, so that's one problem.
Sometimes it's easy to lose track of the material situation.
And secondly, just the pieces are there attacking the king, so that's not a good situation.
Wow, look at this move by Vasif. Pawn takes c4, cold-blooded, leaving the bishop available for capture, but then he goes for pawn c5 with the fork in the position. Looks like Vasif just managed to calculate this out, and it seems like he's going to be up material after he wins this bishop on d6.
But still, I mean, if we look at the knight and the bishop, they are still attacking the king. There can be some problems. I think Black may take the pawn on c5. Just bishop takes c5.
Bishop takes c5, pawn takes c5. It's very important that White can keep the initiative and not allow Black to capture the hanging pawn on g2.
So if I go now queen f6, maybe queen h6, pardon me.
Queen
just
h6.
Trying to put some pressure on the king side.
I mean, it seems like Var is going to have to go for a line like this where he is down material, but going for the king side attack. But is it enough? I mean, White can probably respond with a move like knight g4.
But you have to be careful. There's an interesting variation. Let's say now I go knight e2, and if you missed and you went king h1, I have a very strong move, queen take h3.
So probably king h2 here. Very complex
But now I have
possibilities.
queen f4.
Queen f4, g3,
queen f3.
Queen f3. But then maybe knight e3. We could play on and on and on.
There's some interesting, I mean, White has to be careful.
But yeah, let's revert to the current position. Var is taking his time trying to figure out which line gives him the best chances. We did not see pawn takes c5. We see rook takes c5, then everything getting traded on c5. So White is up the exchange for 2 pawns in this position. So there's actually material equality if we just rely purely on the point system.
I'm just a little surprised that Black went to trade the rooks, because the rooks on c1, I thought there is a potential to get it back by some forks with knight e2. But okay, we have these trades. Black has 2 pawns and a bishop for a rook.
Right, and Vasif would love to play this move rook c1, going for some back rank ideas against the black king, but rook c1 just simply runs into knight e2. Not to mention queen takes e1 followed by knight e2. So the rook can't yet get to the open file. And now it's a question what to do for white. Vasif is going for counterattack. Knight d7. Leaving the g2 pawn still hanging, but attacking the queen on c5. I'm just a bit suspicious of this knight on d7. I mean, what if Var plays a simple queen d6 here? There would be multiple things attacked in the position.
But maybe white goes only to simplified position. So let's say you play queen d6, I want to simplify, so I go queen e5 just to trade, and I want to draw.
That's true, but black is winning a bunch of pawns. Bishop take g2 might be possible, and then rook c1 could be met with bishop take h3, guarding the c8 square.
Yes, but the rook is finally free to go somewhere. So maybe if we go instead of rook c1, rook d1.
Still bishop take h3. And Var is winning a lot of pawns in this line.
But somehow I feel that... Okay, let me go rook e1.
Rook e1, bishop take h3.
And now I am threatening some checkmate on the back rank, so I can be tricky and play maybe knight d3.
Knight d3, but then knight e6. I think black...
Knight c5.
But black should have everything under control. Let's go back to the current position.
And
there
that's what's happening.
Played.
Queen d6, queen e5, we have here trading queens.
We did not see the pawn being captured on g2. Rather, Var went for this advance, pawn d4.
Wow.
And now it's all about simplifying the position. All Vasif has to do, try and trade things off. Don't let black win too many pawns.
But the pawn is suddenly dangerous. I mean, d4, d3, supported by knight, supported by bishop.
Oh, it's a scary position for white and time ticking down for Vasif. I would be inclined just to play a move like rook d1 here, just put the rook facing the d pawn. And then if a move like d3 is played, just a very simple g3 to try and chase the knight away so you can win the pawn on d3.
But the thing is, maybe after rook d1, I do take the pawn on g2 now. So you play
rook d1, you take on g2. Rook d1 was played. So if bishop take g2, rook take d4, you're thinking knight e2? We could play this out real quick just to show the viewers after this exchange. Black would be up 2 pawns in the final position, so probably a very favorable line for black.
So Var played
Var goes
f6,
for f6
instead. Okay. He's not taking the pawn on g2, he's pushing the knight away from the center, and maybe then allowing to play d3 and have more chances there.
I really like this move f6 by Var, not only gaining tempo on the knights, but avoiding any sort of back rank mate possibilities, and enabling the king just to come in very quickly along the diagonal. And if Var can get his king to a square like e6 or d5, then there will be even more support for the pawn on d4. And it seems like Vasif is nervous, kind of fidgeting around there.
Players have only 2 minutes. Last 2 minutes, there is delay, there is no increment. Very stressful situation.
We can see the stress in Vasif's motions there after knight g7. Var finally captures his pawn on g2. Now white is down 3 pawns for the exchange. And what to do is white king h2 played, d3. Var continues to make progress. Vasif still under pressure.
So do we go king g3 now, hitting the knight, and if the knight goes away, we can take the bishop.
Might be met with g5, but then f6 would hang. But
so
they're
that's
going
happening.
For this line.
King g3, g5, knight f6.
With check. I think that was a very crucial pawn that Var just lost. But, white's king is a bit precarious on g3. Oh, Vasif is continuing pawn grabbing. Knight take h7, king g6. Play is unfolding very rapidly. Var going for that king activity. And white's knight being a bit misplaced on f8. But it's a question of whether black can continue to make progress with the minor pieces supporting this pawn on d3.
So I'm very slow here, refreshing the site. I'm not getting the moves that quickly.
At some point, we'll probably just have to take a look at the video of the board. This play is continuing to unfold after knight d7. Vasif very simply wants to bring the knight back to c5, hitting the pawn on d3, maybe going after the pawn on a6. And I mean, it's all a question, how does Var actually make progress here? And I think Vasif is in a good situation, given that all he needs to do is not let black make too much progress, and he should at least draw the game.
And at one moment, I can even take with rook on d3, and when the knight recaptures, I can recapture the bishop. So maybe white is doing fine suddenly.
So bishop d5 played, and then knight c5, simply targeting the pawn on d3. I think we can expect something like bishop to c4. This is Var's last hope, just this pawn on d3. Not caring about this pawn on a6. He has to go all in here to try and create some last winning chances.
I mean, is Vasif going to take the last pawn? Yes, so Vasif took knight take h6, Var took on a2.
Actually, that maybe wasn't a bad trade for Var after the a-pawns come off the board. Var now has an additional passed pawn on b5, and maybe the plan is to bring the bishop back to c4.
So I wonder if I go knight b4 here.
Knight b4 was played, and bishop c4.
And then king f3, just bringing the king to the
this
center.
Is what's being played. With the simple threat of king e3, and white has a nice blockade here, making sure that black's pawns can advance further. Pawns being stuck on b5 and d3. And black's king can't really be improved.
Yeah, the difficulty is for black to see how to advance, because all your pawns are blocked. With the king, it's very hard to find a way how to break in, and you can't really capture with knight on h3, because then you lose control of the d3 square, of the d3 pawn.
Yeah, the h3 pawn is not too relevant in this position, given the knight is tied down to this pawn on d3. And Var is thinking his time is ticking down. King e5 played, very simple king e3 by Vasif. I'm wondering maybe a move like knight g2 check, followed by king d4, but it doesn't seem like these lines are working out for black.
I feel every
king
time...
d6.
King d6.
Maybe going for king c5, but this does allow white to play king to d4. Just get some activity with the king.
And another idea can be after king d6 to push the pawn, maybe h4, because the knight is no longer defended by the king.
h4 was actually a potential move in the position, but king d4 played. I mean, why not further improve the king? And Var going back with his king to e6. Seems like Vasif is actually the one maybe making some progress here. We see king e3 back, now king f6. Perhaps Var is looking to try and come around to the king side. Maybe this is the last hope in the position to come through via g6, h5, and go after the h3 pawn.
I wonder if white can play h4 now.
h4, potential
maybe
move.
No
king
reason,
e4
just
played.
king e4, improving the king.
Ooh, knight take h3, that was kind of a messy move.
Tricky move, because now you cannot take on d3. Was king e4 just a blunder?
King e3 back, so the h3 pawn has vanished from the position. Hard to keep up here. Let's just focus on the video. Vasif's move. Yeah, I think he blundered the h-pawn. But at least his rook is getting active in the position.
Yeah, that's the good part. So the rook is behind now, can be checking the king. But what's the time on the clock? I can't see.
It seems like about 7 seconds for Vasif, about 15 seconds for Var. Not much time left for either side. It's going to be a pretty intense time scramble. See both players shuffling around the pieces. Sometimes play can get messy in these later stages of the time scramble.
I have information that Vasif is only 4 seconds, and remember there is 2-second delay, no increment. I mean, Vasif is getting nervous. You can see it, how he's insecure with his moves.
King f3, black seems to be making progress. The king does want to penetrate the position. f2 is the next weakness for black to attack. And now the knight maneuvering probably to f3. And Vasif's hope. Oh, Vasif won the d3 pawn.
Oh, okay.
The d3 pawn was crucial. I think Var blundered. And
that's
now
a huge
it should just be a matter of
simplification.
technique. Uh-oh. Do we have a controversy? Looks like Vasif paused the clock. And now
Because
Tony Rich on scene.
It looks like the king is checked by the rook and by the knight, so it's impossible to have such double check. So probably Var made an illegal move, knight g1. That's what seems that Vasif is arguing for.
I mean, I missed it. I'm not sure if we have a slow motion replay. I know they were using slow motion replays on the St. Louis Rapid Blitz last year, being told we don't have a slow motion replay, but I'm sure the viewers can probably go back, look at the YouTube live stream and see what happened. I wonder if Tony Rich is doing just that. We can see Tony Rich and Mike Kummer in the corner there. Both players still at the board.
But
what do you think the call is here?
I think it's just the illegal move that Vasiv is arguing for, but I think Vasiv is getting a break now, and even if the claim goes to him or not, he's having, I think, a winning position right now because the deep 3 pawn was a crucial pawn, and now it seems that he should not have an issue with holding this position.
Okay, I'm being told, Katerina, you are right about the speculation. The arbiter is trying to work out the situation, maybe consulting the video replay. I do have the PGN moves of the position, but probably we should stay with the video and see what's going on here. Looks like Vasif nodding his head. I am curious, does an illegal move end the game in a rapid format, or does time get added to the clock?
I am not sure, but I think that since even in a classical game, two illegal moves lose the game, I believe one illegal move should be enough to lose a rapid game.
No, it looks like he added time. Look at the clock. It shows 2 minutes for the white player, Vasif. So probably he was correct with his claim of the illegal move. Not a great situation for VAR, losing the pawn on d3 and now having a serious time deficit with just probably a simple conversion for Vasif.
I mean, Vasif now has 2 minutes. That's such a huge time advantage
But what's
compared
going
to
on
VAR.
here? I mean, Tony Rich coming back to the board, seems like the players are confused,
It looks like they're analyzing the position.
trying to figure out, pointing to the f8 square.
I believe the last move that black made illegal was knight g1, so the knight should go back to f3, and VAR is supposed to, yes, I think this is the correct position, and now it's black's turn.
Yeah, this is usually the right call when there's an illegal move played. You have to go back to the last known legal position, which probably is this moment. And now Vasif having 2 minutes to think. Not sure if we're going to have the PGN or the board, because it is showing a PGN error given that an illegal move was played. Tony Rich back at the board for a third time. Just more confusion going on.
Well, I don't know what's. It looks like it's set. Tony Rich is pointing out, like, let's start the clock, guys. Let's play.
Can only speculate at this point. Maybe Tony wants to play Vasif's next move.
So
now
it looks
both
like they are
players
getting help
going-
from the actual video. They're gonna watch it to see what's happening. Both of the
turning around
players.
the monitor. Not sure if we have a better angle. Bit difficult to see what's going on there, but maybe both players consulting the video replay here. There's the
Let's see.
angle.
We do have, so they are looking at the game. Tony Rich is explaining what happened. It seems the players understood. They are going back. VAR is going back. Vasif, they're sitting next to the board, and the clock is going to start.
Have you ever seen something like this? I mean, this is pretty unusual for players to go back and forth like that. But play is continuing.
So the game is going on, so capturing the pieces.
Very hard
Check.
to follow at this point.
Okay.
Mike Kummer blocking one of the camera angles there, maybe keeping a closer eye given what just happened. But hands are shaken. Looks like Vasif has won the game, given that VAR was in a must-win situation. You know what this means? Vasif is the champion for Group A.
I mean, Vasif had excellent tournament. He won the first round in the playoff. He drew the second one, and he is winner of the Group A.
No, very impressive play by Vasif, especially in the rapid game today. I did not know that an exchange French could be this exciting. I mean, if we look at, or if we saw the opening, I mean, it seemed very symmetrical, very boring, but things got very tactical in that middle game.
I feel it's always exciting to watch a game where there is delay and no increment, because players really can go out of the trouble of having no time. They have to keep being stressed and making quick moves. I mean, and this is what can happen. You can make a illegal move.
Yeah, and we see Vasif's teammate there, Peter Prohaska, giving a handshake. Vasif and VAR shaking hands yet again. And now they're analyzing the position. But before we go on to that, congratulations, Vasif Darabeli from Azerbaijan. clinching the $6,000 first place prize for Group A. He got off to an incredibly fiery start, winning the first 4 games, not having the strongest finish, but pulling through in a rapid playoff against Rosen on the podium.
And we had him here in the studio, and he was saying, I'm just finishing my finals, doing my last projects. He finished his school, he wins the tournament. What an amazing start for your vacation.
Yeah, and they're still analyzing the game. Very impressive that after such a long and draining tournament like this, you're just inclined to analyze some more chess.
Yeah, congratulations, Vasif Darabaili. Very nice tournament and very good play, we have to say, for VAR. He had a great tournament as well. Playoff didn't work well. Maybe the first game was very difficult, and then it's very hard to push for win when you are black.
That's true, and we should note that VAR was your pick to win the tournament in Group A. So you were so close, but no cigar for you, Vasif, pulling through in the end. Hopefully we can get him in the studio. I think it's just a matter of him cooling down. He probably knows where he needs to go at this point. And yeah, walking there, maybe returning his pen, and I'm sure he'll be downstairs in no time.
So it looks like we're going to take just a very short break. We will get Vasif to the studio and we will talk with him about how it is to win such a tournament.
A question on Twitter from Damas. I should not have pronounced that. That was a bit of a trap, yeah?
For those of you who are new to chess, it might look like ba3 is an illegal move here because white advances pawn 2 squares, not 1. But it's a little something we call en passant. And you can do that, but you have to do it instantly. You can't wait for a move, like let's say play king e7, king g2, and now try, because could I do it?
I'm sorry. This is too funny for words.
This is a software glitch? I'm pretty sure there's not allowed.
Lawrence. Hello, Lawrence. Yeah, I'll play 4 against Lawrence. And now he's going to play something against me which we discussed at length during the course of my stay. Yeah, he told me this is excellent. d5, this was what I was kind of hoping for, because now I think e5 is quite strong. No, Lawrence, this is not how chess works. Sadly, it would be much, much more fun if chess actually worked like this. But I don't think it does. Or maybe it does. Well, that's me regretting what I just said. How did I get from there to here is a little bit beyond me. And what's worse, I will never hear the end of it. My quality of life has just gone downhill tremendously because I'm actually sharing the office with the guy.
Hello everyone, welcome back in the studio. I'm Women Grandmaster Katerina Nemcova, and I'm joined here by the winner of Group A tournament, Vasif Darabaili. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
So
much.
can you just tell us what happened? What was the controversy at the beginning, here at the end of the game?
He made an illegal move here. Instead of, playing with king or taking my knight,
So
he played here knight g1, and I realized that he made illegal move after rook f8.
So you played rook f8, that happened, right?
Yeah, and as far as I know, according to FIDE rules, arbiter should intervene in this kind of cases and stop the game. But I think arbiter also missed the illegal move, so I stopped. And according to the rules, we started playing from that position here.
So we saw Tony Rich coming back and forth, you guys going to the computer. Did you go to watch the video, or what did you do there in the corner?
We check the moves to make sure that we are going to play from right position. So.
But VAR agreed that he made an illegal move?
Yes, yeah, we were trying to figure this game.
So this was a very tough game. Can you just walk us through what was the critical situation? What do you think?
Unbelievable.
It started as a exchange French, such a boring Jewish opening.
Yeah, I've never played exchange French because my style is I'm playing always for a win. But I thought I won the first game and the second game draw is okay. Then somehow I got bad position. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but I had some problems. Maybe I should have taken b takes c5, but instead I played castle, take, knight d2, and here Akobian didn't take knight d4.
We were analyzing here in the studio, and we thought that you have some counterplay, maybe with queen a4.
Yeah,
going
knight
back.
c6, knight d5, bishop d7. Yeah, I was thinking maybe I will have some counter chance, but I believe black.
But do you think it was better chance for black to go for the capture?
Of course.
We thought that this is a critical situation because after castle, it seems that after h3 you are doing okay.
Yeah, I think white is slightly better. And here, I was really happy about my position. And I did not understand why he played bishop d6 first. I was like, what's the idea? And I completely missed that he wants to take bishop f3.
That was a very strong trick. I mean, we did not anticipate it as well to just go here.
I wonder what's happening after b3 here. I should have played b3.
So b3, we're attacking the knight.
I mean, actually he can still take bishop f3.
So if black
bishop
takes,
f3, b
so can you
takes
take
c,
here?
b takes, d takes c. Maybe this position is bad for me. Yeah.
We have some tricks
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So instead of b3, probably here the best move was like bishop g3 or h2.
And what's the idea?
The idea when he takes f3, I can take with knight. Probably bishop h2.
So when you go here, so after taking, just feeling free just to take back.
Knight f3.
So okay, so you went with bishop f5, attacking the rook on f8,
Yeah,
thinking everything is fine.
Everything fine. Suddenly when he took, I was like, I'm completely lost. Then I saw that, he cannot play with knight because c8 is hanging.
So was there a little luck?
Yeah.
The luck that b3 is actually there?
Without luck, winning the tournament is really hard.
So knight h5 happened, you took. Now, there were some crazy trades. We kind of thought that maybe it's better not to trade the rooks here.
For white?
For black.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't take, I'm going to play something like rook c6, and you don't have attack, I believe.
That's true. Okay, so captures.
Here we were discussing that he should have taken the pawns, bishop g2.
Inside of d4?
Yes, bishop g2 probably would have been better.
I mean, this is such a complicated position to play. You have less than 2 minutes. The bishop and knights are very tricky pieces. They can make forks. And I mean, you
probably
as white
here
have
I
2
have
pawns
rook
down.
e1 though. I have rook e1 now, I see. The idea is that if bishop h3, I can jump somewhere. Knight d3, knight e6, knight b4, and I'm taking back some
So I think that's even a variation we were analyzing with Eric, something like this, knight e6, knight c5, knight b4.
So I'm taking 1 pawn back.
So d4, Var was not very happy after the analysis, you said?
Yeah,
so
I think
play rook d1.
Rook d1, f6, and here I don't have any problem.
But suddenly there were some problems, so,
I mean,
so what
is
happened?
it not when you play fast? I mean, here I was happy about my position. And then here I was thinking that I should play h4. Probably I should have done. Then I saw knight g2, king f3, knight h4, and here after king e4, d3 is hanging. I think
that's kind of the crucial pawn, when the pawn is out of the board.
Black cannot defend. But instead I decided first I will put my king on e4, then play h4, so there is no knight g2, and then I blundered, of course, knight h3. Luckily the position is still equal.
And we have a question. So after this this issue with the illegal move, let's move there. Here, so you take. So did Var try to play, or he just said, okay, you have time advantage, you got extra 2 minutes, there's no reason to move?
He wanted to play, but he flagged. That's why.
Oh.
Yeah,
so he actually lost on
but
time.
We both had 2 seconds here, and it's not increment, so it's really hard delay. That's why everything can happen even in this level.
So it's interesting. It started as a exchange French, but it happened to be a very interesting game, a lot of tactics. So congratulations for winning this tournament. Now I have a question. You just finished your school.
Yeah.
You just won a tournament. What are your next plans? How do you feel?
I need to move out from my apartment, so I'm going to pack all my stuff. I don't have much time. Tomorrow morning I'm going to Chicago Open, and then I will go home, spend some time with my family. I think I'm not sure that I will play any chess tournament during the summer.
So the next tournament you have is Chicago Open. Then you think you will take a break, enjoy your vacation, actually be done with school, and so are you going back to your family?
Yes, I'm going to Azerbaijan on May 29th.
Well, enjoy your vacation. Congratulations. Very nice tournament. Great games. We enjoy doing commentary for this playoff.
Thank you very
and
much.
enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
So we will be back after a very short break.
This August, the best chess players in the world are coming to St. Louis for the Grand Chess Tour. The St. Louis Rapid and Blitz and Sinkfield Cup tournaments will feature the world's best right here in St. Louis. St. Louis Chess Club is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and these tournaments will be a highlight you won't want to miss. For tickets and more information, go to stlouischessclub.org.
There's a weekend vacation, a one-tank trip in a nearby city you won't want to skip. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton. There's museums full of art and super fun slides. Upside-down concretes, twisty, turny rides. Houses full of magic, some with butterflies. Gardens growing flowers, parks with giant eyes. St. Louis is the stop for non-stop fun. So much fun for your family, infinity plus a ton.
This is a crucial situation in this game. Matheny must make a move, but what will it be? All eyes are on Matheny.
Could make a move a lot easier if you weren't doing that right next to me.
It doesn't bother me. Check.
The St. Louis Chess Club, celebrating 10 years of promoting, teaching, and playing the game of chess. Visit the St. Louis Chess Club and help celebrate our 10th anniversary.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here for some final thoughts. I am Women Grandmaster Katerina Nemcova, and I'm joined back by International Master Eric Rosen.
Good to be back, and yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. Let's take a look at the final standings for Group B. We had a somewhat quieter finish compared to Group A, with Camille Dragon winning the tournament. Very impressive, 6.5 out of 9 points. I talked with Camille after he clinched victory, and it seemed like he wasn't expecting such an incredible result, but all congrats to him, and best of luck to him at the Chicago Open.
And second was Andrei Stukopin, and the third spot goes to, I just forgot, I don't see the graphics anymore, but JJ Alimarandi and Robert Aghasarian.
So moving on to standings in Group A, we had a very exciting rapid playoff with Vasif Darbaili winning both rapid games to edge out Varujan Akobian to take the title and the top prize.
And Sam Savian finishing clear third with 5.5 points. So he drew to David Vasif, and that was enough for him to clinch the bronze medal. So congratulations to Vasif Darbaili, who is the winner for Group A.
And we do want to note that there are some exciting events coming up in the near future. Your next move starts June 12th. I believe it's the first edition of the Grand Chess Tour. And then, of course, in August, we're going to have two more very exciting events taking place in St. Louis with the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, August 9th through the 16th, and then, of course, the Sinkfield Cup as well.
So make sure to follow up the broadcast for these amazing events and watch some incredible games, strong grandmasters. I think it's going to be very exciting.
And I do want to say it's been a pleasure for both of us doing commentary throughout the event. It was our first time doing commentary, lots to learn, but it was very enjoyable to see so many exciting games. And I think now it's time to, oh look, a picture of us. That's a nice picture. I think it's time for maybe some Bughouse, maybe some unwinding, some nice dinner. So
thank you so much for following us, listening to our commentary. I hope you learn, and maybe see you someday in future.
Definitely see you guys in the future. Shout out to everyone watching around the world. If you want to review any of the games, go to uschesschamps.com, and hopefully we'll be back sometime in the future.
Bye.
Take care.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.